día cualquiera, no sabes qué hora es. Las calles mojadas te han visto crecer. Tú en tu corazón estás llorando otra vez. Asomo a la ventana, eres la chica de ayer, jugando con las flores en mi jardín. Demasiado tarde para comprender. Chica, vete a tu casa y no podemos jugar. La luz de la mañana entra en mi habitación. Tus cabellos dorados parecen el sol. Luego por la noche al penta a escuchar canciones que consiguen que te pueda amar. Asomo a la ventana, eres la chica de ayer, jugando con las flores en mi jardín. Demasiado tarde para comprender. Mi cabeza da vueltas persiguiéndote. Mi cabeza da vueltas persiguiéndote. Mi cabeza da vueltas persiguiéndote. Cabeza da vueltas persiguiéndote. Para allá, chicos. Si no le damos caña en la hora de la siesta. Venga. Ahora sí, parece que ya empiezo a entender. Las cosas importantes aquí son las que están detrás de la piel. Todo lo demás empieza donde acaban mis pies. Después de mucho tiempo aprendí que hay cosas que es mejor no aprender. El colegio poco me enseñó. Es por esos libros nunca aprendo a coger el cielo con las manos, a reír y a llorar lo que te canto, a coser mi alma rota, a perder el miedo a quedar como un idiota y a empezar la casa por el tejado, a poder dormir cuando tú no estás a mi lado. Menos mal que fui un poco naranja. Todo lo que sé me lo enseñó una bruja. A mi lado, no estás a mi lado.
Hello, 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 everybody. Come, join us here at the front. There's plenty of spaces. Good afternoon. First of all, first things first. Come, we were waiting for you. Good afternoon, everybody. Is there anyone in the room? Oh, there's people at the back. The guys at the front, you're dead. Sorry to tell you. Okay, my name is Elena, and I'm thrilled to be your MC on this stage this afternoon, this wonderful arena stage, where we have a band. So thank you to Alex, Marcos, Pedro, exactly. We have a band. If you have any special requests for the band, please let me know. Just raise your hand, and they can play everything. So let us know. There's been some complaints that we play too loud, but who cares? Okay, so this afternoon, we're going to talk, there's a general topic called disruptives. Listen and learn from disruptive leaders. And we're going to start with the top. The word, which is Amazon. Why are you here, everybody? Why are you here? You write Amazon on a program anywhere, and you have the full room, usually. Well, we're competing with a lot of top people here, but there you go. Yes, so you're the lucky ones. But we're going to have three big words this afternoon: artificial intelligence, machine learning, and obviously Amazon. Well, as you know, Amazon uses machine learning and artificial intelligence behind almost everything they do. Sometimes you can see it more easily and more clearly, like with Alexa's assistant voice assistant, or with the drones, they have machine learning behind them. But sometimes it's not so easy or so evident, you know. It's underneath, it's beneath the surface. To talk about Amazon's new approach to IA and ML, we have organized a chat with the VP Global Innovation Policy and Communications at Amazon, a veteran, because he's been almost 20 years in the company, so he knows everything about it. But his passion is the same one, as he says, as the first day. He's in charge with advocating Amazon's culture and methods of custom-based, obsessed innovation. They are obsessed, as you know, with customers, and that's why they do so well. There must be other secrets. I'm sure we'll be able to ask him questions, so feel free to ask. And to facilitate the chat, we have a person that has no need for introduction. You all know him because he's the managing director of the Venture Lab at IE Business School. So please, let's welcome Paul Missener and Paris Deletras. Welcome, everybody. Come on, join us up. Come on, hurry up. There's space here. Hello, Paris. Paul, welcome.
Thank you, Helen.
Yeah, welcome, Paul. I'm just letting people come in. Sorry, I was saying the magic word, Amazon, 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 and the room starts filling up. All yours, Paris, Paul. Thank you for coming.
If it works.
Thank you, Elena. All right, let's grab a seat. I got to admit that I wanted to be moderating this discussion because Paul and I go back quite a while. I think he's the person that travels more than I do, and those of you that know me know that's a lot of traveling.
Nothing to be proud of here.
I think last time we went was in Dubai, right?
I think so, yeah.
Exactly. So we're going to talk today about AI and ML, machine learning. And what I thought I'd start with is asking Paul how he defines AI and machine learning, because that's really, I mean, a lot of people, they hear the words, it's like almost like a buzz theme all the time. But what is it? In layman's terms, Paul, what is machine learning and AI?
Well, they're not synonymous, Paris. It turns out that machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. And so artificial intelligence is when you use machines to do something smartly, kind of like a human might do, and to do them intelligently. Machine learning, on the other hand, is artificial intelligence that by itself gets smarter.
Okay, so AI is going to have an impact on our lives, right? And I know a lot of people are worried about jobs. I mean, we're here in Spain. I think the last figure of unemployment was about 15%. What do you tell someone that is concerned about the role of AI with respect to, destruction of jobs?
Yeah, so it's hard to overstate the importance of what artificial intelligence and machine learning will do for every aspect of our lives. It will improve our lives in just about every area over the next couple of decades. As far as employment goes, Amazon has a long history of side-by-side hiring lots of people and employing automation. And so even back in late 99, early 2000, when I joined the company, we had forms of artificial intelligence, something called collaborative filtering, determined what we call the recommendations that you get. If you've ever had a chance to shop at Amazon, when you purchase something, oftentimes the website will offer up recommendations of other things that you might like. Well, that technology dates back to the mid-90s, and that's artificial intelligence. So at the same time, we've been deploying more and more automation in our business, including in our warehouses, but at the same time, we're also hiring more individuals. Now, that said, the kinds of jobs that will exist in the next decades and the next century will obviously change. I mean, if you look back 100 years ago and sat down with a group of a couple thousand people like this, and virtually all of them are farmers, and then you describe the kinds of jobs that you anticipate in 2019, and you talk about working with artificial intelligence, et cetera, they wouldn't have any clue. So we don't really know what the jobs are going to be, but there will be jobs, and those jobs are going to be ones that require humans, and where humans can actually have more fulfilling kinds of work. And so I don't think anyone should be afraid, but we also have to approach this very intelligently, make sure that we're working on retraining existing workers and making sure that students coming into the workforce are properly trained.
Paul, when I wake up in the morning, it's usually early. And the first thing that I do...
Probably not as early as I.
Probably not, because you're from the Northwest.
I'm up at like 3:45.
Oh, no. I'm talking maybe 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, that's sleeping in, man.
Yeah, I sleep in. But you know, the first thing I do is say, "Good morning, Alexa." Mm-hmm. And Alexa will tell me the meetings I have that day. She'll tell me what the weather's going to be. She'll tell me the exact time. So is Alexa going to improve? What else could she do for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we don't know. We don't know all the things that Alexa can do, in part because we're relying on outside parties to develop skills. These are essentially the apps for Alexa. And she's getting smarter. She's getting smarter not only because of the addition of these skills, these apps, but also because she's learning the kinds of things that are important to you as a customer of Amazon. And so Alexa will get better specifically for you, but it will also get better across for all of our customers. And that's really important. That relies on the kinds of machine learning tools that now we are also making available to third parties through Amazon Web Services. This is our cloud computing business. But so now we're witnessing a democratization of machine learning and artificial intelligence. Everyone in this room can now avail themselves of those sorts of tools for whatever interests you.
Okay. Let's talk now about AI and machine learning with respect to outside work. Let's forget about jobs.
Yeah.
In our homes. You recently acquired Ring. Mm-hmm. Is there a role there for AI?
Oh, absolutely. We want Ring to become smart as well, to get smarter and smarter. And
could it recognize people like coming to the door?
Of course. There's no reason why not. So the Ring technology is really great in the first place. I mean, if you've not tried it, it's kind of cool. But it will get smarter as well.
For those of you that don't know, Ring is like in your doorbell in the U.S., and it can warn you. It starts to film the people that are like ringing the bell and stuff like that.
Yeah, and if you don't adjust the settings right, it'll warn you if a spider goes in front of it too. So you have to tinker with the settings to make sure the sensitivity and the areas where it's looking for motion are appropriate for your particular application. But yeah, and it will get smarter.
Eventually, Alexa could say, "Your mother-in-law is right outside the door."
Yeah, and then you go right out the back door.
Okay, so let's also talk about something else. Kids.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, this is a great story, and maybe you want to share it with the audience here. Paul not only takes AI seriously at work, he takes it seriously at home.
Yeah.
Tell us about your kid.
Well, my elder son has long been interested in meteorology and atmospheric sciences. And so we decided to take on a project about a year ago where we would take weather data, meteorological data, which is plentiful if you know where to look, and see if it could be used to actually predict tornadoes. These are very violent storms that occur mostly in the American Midwest and parts of Australia. And predicting weather of any sort is notoriously difficult. It's where chaos theory sort of began as a science or a mathematics. And we thought that maybe if by applying some machine learning to weather data, predictions could be made. And so we employed a fairly simple version of machine learning running on AWS, on Amazon Web Services, which is called a binary classifier. And a binary classifier takes a bunch of data and then makes a yes or no kind of prediction. Yes, there will be one, no, there will not. And so the hard part, frankly, was distilling all that information down into a manageable size that could make a prediction about whether there was going to be a tornado of force greater than EF2 on the Fujita scale. You don't need to know that. But the whole point was big data applications, which had been completely impossible to even conceive of addressing just 10 years ago, now are easily addressed and on the cheap.
So do you think eventually ML or machine learning will help kids with their homework?
Well, you know, at some level you don't want them to help with the homework, right? Because you want them to understand what's behind the kinds of thinking that they're being taught. But certainly it's going to change every aspect of our lives. It's a tool. It's an important tool. And so sometimes you want a mathematics test and allow the students to use a calculator. And sometimes you don't. Sometimes you would rather have them demonstrate their ability to do it on their own. But at some level, you face the same kind of a question with machine learning and artificial intelligence. You want them to be able to use a tool that's going to be so important in their lives in the coming decades that you want them to learn that, but not at the expense of learning the basics, of course.
Of course, but I mean, at the end of the day, if it can be automated, if it's like grunt work, that's not where you want your kids spending their time anyways. So
that's all true.
Being able to use these tools is critical to them, you know, learning the things that are really important out there.
Yeah, and you know, there's a history of up-leveling what is essential to learn as a child. I mean, we don't all have to learn Latin anymore, right? That seemed to be the thing that you must learn when you're 5 and 6 years old 300 years ago. We don't do that anymore because it's really not an important thing, or we've moved beyond it. Likewise, it feels like, yeah, there will be a time when things like keeping a calculator off of a test will be viewed as unimportant. For example, I don't know, how many, you and I may be the only ones in this room who know how to use a slide rule. You don't need to know that anymore, even though that was an essential teaching, a few decades ago.
You've just like uncovered my age group.
Well, there's no hiding it. We're contemporaries.
Most of my students think I'm a millennial. So
okay.
So let's get back.
They need some artificial intelligence.
All right, let's get back to reality here. So one of the decisions that you guys made recently, which was placing a pretty strong bet, was that free shipping for Prime members was going to work.
Yeah.
Did AI play any role there?
Not really, not much. And so this is Amazon Prime. If you don't know it, it's an annual subscription service which initially gave access to customers to get free 2-day shipping on millions of items. Since then, the products and services available to Prime members has expanded dramatically. But at the time, it was really trying to get at free shipping. The customer experience of e-commerce at that moment, and this is sort of the early to mid-2000s, was one where you could find an item that you wanted to buy online and you would see a price associated with it, but it was only after you went through the whole process of entering in your name, address, credit card information, and all that you finally get to a total price, including the shipping. And sometimes the shipping was very expensive, and so customers were turned off by that. It's just a bad customer experience, especially when you're trying to compare the price of an item to something that you also saw in a physical store. So we had this thought, and it was mostly subjective. There wasn't a lot of data to support it or refute it at that point. But we had this thought that customers would love to have a notion of what the final price is when they're just looking at the object. And that would mean taking out the shipping costs. And the only way we saw to do that would be through a shipping subscription service. And in the early years, it was questioned. People wondered whether this was a sustainable model, especially given that the money that we were spending on shipping, making it free to customers, was our money. right? It wasn't customer money somehow. We were spending money, and that money was going away forever because it was going to shipping companies. It wasn't like we were investing in a physical plant where even if it lost money, we could eventually sell it for pennies on the dollar. It was a case where money was just going out the door. And so it turns out we were right. Customers love Prime, and they love all the new benefits that now are offered to Prime members. But it was a bit of a qualitative or a subjective sort of an assessment in advance.
Okay, let's now get to the basics, because as you know, I spend a lot of time talking to big companies about user experience and how that is more important nowadays even than the product. And I always talk about Amazon because you guys are obsessed with the customer. I don't think there are very many companies in the world that are as obsessed with the customer as Amazon. And what you guys do all the time is go after the pain points. And as Jeff Bezos says, he doesn't believe in customer service because if you need customer service, then it means you're not doing something right. So talk to me a little bit about the culture inside the company. How do you, and I know when you recruit, you look for people that have emotional intelligence, empathy, so that they can relate better with these customer pain points. Talk to us a little bit about how you recruit people and the sort of people that you want in the company that can really transmit this customer obsession to clients.
Yeah, so first of all, there's a subtle difference in our terminology. We don't talk about UX inside the company, we talk about CX. So it's not some vague user out there, it's a customer. And so we obsess over that customer, want to improve her customer experience, her CX. We have 14 leadership principles, which are the principles by which we make decisions, by which we hire people, evaluate them annually, and so forth. They really are what we live by. But the first and foremost of the 14 is customer obsession. And the customer obsession principle is written starting by, we start with the customer and work backwards. And this determines how we innovate, for example. We will picture a new product or service that we want to offer to our customers sometime in the future, it may be months or years from now, but we'll actually sit down today and write out the press release announcing it. That press release is destined to go out months or years from now, but we write the press release today. It does really three things for you. First, you've made a commitment in writing, so you can't just decide, oh, this was hard, we didn't really mean to decide that. No, you've written it down, and so it will govern how you behave for the next several years. Second, it's written in customer terms. So what's in it for her? What does she get out of it? It's the what, not the how. The how is up to us to figure out. The third thing is, you're admitting that what you want to do for your customers is today impossible. Because if it were possible today, you'd write the press release and send it out in the morning or early next week after the lawyers looked at it. You're writing a press release for a long time from now, and working backwards from that press release, you're going to have to invent and innovate things that just aren't possible today.
For many people, AI, for many companies that are probably here present, it's almost like this unknown that they know they need to get into because it's a wave that's coming. And we've had lots of waves, in the last 30 years that people have had to ride. But a lot of people don't take it seriously. And one of the things that I really admire about Amazon is, for you, AI is a strategy. You see AI as fundamental to the strategy of the company. Talk to us more about that.
Well, first and foremost, AI and machine learning can be used to improve CX, customer experience. So that's enough. I mean, that's sufficient that we can do things better for customers by using artificial intelligence, so we do it. At some level, it's that simple. Second, we're very familiar with it. We've been doing it for a long time. You mentioned Alexa. The way we store things in our warehouses, for example, relies on a tremendous amount of AI because we don't store all of one product in one set of shelves. It's not like if you want the latest Harry Potter and there's 3 racks of Harry Potter books. No, those books are spread all over the warehouse. A human could not possibly know where all those books are. The computer does. And when there's an order then for a Harry Potter book, a pair of shoes, a pot and pan set, then the computer determines which of those are chosen in the most efficient way to get them out the door the fastest. And so we've been relying on this artificial intelligence and machine learning for a long time, but underlying it all is customer obsession. We can make what we do, the products and services we provide to customers, better using it.
Let's talk a little bit about the dangerous side of AI. And I know that your CEO is very concerned about this. He's written a lot or talked a lot about how we need to regulate somehow the use of AI or enemy drones or things that could be used to do harm. What's behind that sort of push on the behalf of your company to make sure that AI is not used for nasty purposes?
Yeah, so there are other CEOs who have been more outspoken on this point than Jeff, but we've always made clear, and he's made clear, that things like autonomous weaponry is extremely scary. If anybody in here is not scared of autonomous weapons, they ought to be. But that is actually something that is the capability exists today for that. That would be sort of narrow artificial intelligence. So a narrow artificial intelligence, the sort of things that we're doing today and learning to do better today, could include that kind of weaponization. It feels like there's a need for some sort of international agreement on that as soon as possible. We really need to be worried about that. But that's, of course, people are pretty good at killing themselves anyway, without the help of machinery. And so, that's more of a person problem. There's a second kind of AI, sort of call it a general AI, where there's a self-awareness and setting its own objectives. We're nowhere near that point. And we may never ever get there. I mean, that's sort of, the thing that morphs into something that protects itself and attacks humans. We're not at that point, and it's kind of difficult to imagine how we get to that point. I'd be much more worried about solving the immediate issue of using artificial intelligence for, warlike purposes.
Right. Which brings us to the point of how far AI is going to go. There are a lot of people that think AI eventually will replace humans. I'm not one of those. There are people that say that AI will never be able to exercise real judgment. Obviously, if you look at the things that, as a humanity, are sacred to us, or the things that it's very difficult to even imagine AI to be able to have as real feelings, spirituality, all these things. Where do you guys see the limits to AI?
It's hard to tell now. I mean, those limits clearly exist now. And sort of in the near term, I can say with some certainty that we'll still be in this sort of narrow AI world. Whether it ever transcends to that self-awareness, I don't know. That's pretty far away if it ever happens. But we ought to be taking care of the things that matter now. And so, like any new technology, it can be used for good or ill. And facial recognition is one that's received a lot of attention. We're very sensitive to this, and we believe that near-term regulation is necessary. It shouldn't stifle innovation for the positive uses of facial recognition. At the same time, there is room for policymakers to take a stand here, and we're on their side. I mean, we want to work with them to figure out the right solution, but not in a way that stifles innovation, but at the same time takes care of the legitimate concerns.
Okay, we're just about out of time, but getting back to the point I made at the beginning, because there are a lot of people today worried about jobs in AI. Amazon is probably one of the biggest users or practicers of AI in the world, but you're also one of the biggest employers in the world. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's never been mutually exclusive. We've always used automation to make all of Amazon employees more efficient, better at what they do, better able to focus on the things that require human skills, and so automation is part of it. When I first joined late '99, I mean, people were pushing around carts, going through aisles, pulling things off the aisle and putting them in the cart, trying to assemble a customer order, but they had a handheld scanner which was attached to this computer system which told them where to go, where the things were, and what's the most efficient path to. Things have obviously improved dramatically in our fulfillment centers since then, and we continue to hire apace. So there's not this zero-sum game. You'll recall the Luddites, when they busted up the millworks, they were afraid of losing a particular kind of a job. But obviously there have been far more jobs created since the Luddites. Believe me, this is not a criticism of the people who are concerned about this. Any big enterprise, government or private, deserves scrutiny. I mean, we including we deserve your scrutiny. But let's have a very objective conversation about these kinds of things. And I don't personally believe it's a worry. I believe that automation will give humans more time to focus on the things that humans do best.
Well, the reality is that Amazon is now hiring about 650,000 people, so I think that speaks for itself. All right, let's give Paul a big hand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Don't go, don't go. because we're going to continue with the program. And with the band, yes, venga, venga, un aplauso a la banda. A round of applause to the band. Don't go. Well, that was an interesting conversation with Paul Missener. We found out actually about what time he wakes up, and Paris as well. We also found out, are there any IE students from the business school? Hi, everybody. Well, you know now that Paris is a millennial. He just has white hair. That doesn't mean he's not a millennial. What else did we learn? We also learned that it's not UX by CX. It's not the user experience, but the user is a customer, okay? It's easier, and it's closer to our heart to have customers. Okay, I'm going to ask the audience that is coming in to come down here. There's plenty of spaces at the front. Please don't be shy. And those who are leaving, shame on you. Please do it in silence. Somebody's listening to me. I'm so happy to hear that. Okay, come on, hurry up. We have no time to wait. Let's give them a little bit more of a chimpún. Come on, a chimpún. Woo! All right. Woo! Thank you to the first row, very energetic. This is to wake you up, guys, in case you're thinking of coming here to have a siesta. No way. I can see you all from here. Okay, we talked about machine learning. We talked about, oh, he's coming to kick me out already? Oh, okay. We talked about, I was saying, machine learning, artificial intelligence, Amazon, of course. Another big word I bring for you, another big word, which is open innovation. Oh, everybody talks about open innovation, but it might seem like a fashion word we just came up with. No, my friends. As you know, this was started or invented or came up with at the beginning of the century by Henry Chesbrough from Berkeley University. But what has happened since then? Does everybody already know what it is and has done something about it? Well, the next panel is going to give us some clues and answers to questions. We have a bunch of collaborators and startups and connectors and network and corporation to tell us, well, different angles of what's going on in open innovation as a society. Is there a value in collaborating? Is it a real one, or is this just BS? Sorry, excuse my language. What are the common mistakes that we make, and what are the issues that need to be solved? Okay, so to take care of these questions and answer them, hopefully, we have a fantastic panel. I'm going to name them all, because there are 5 people, and then we'll give them a round of applause at the end, okay? All right, we have the head of Enel Innovation Hubs, he's Fabio Tentori. We have Telefonica Innovation Ventures Director, she's Genia Wavendo. We have Scarlett Siever, she's the Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer of Catalyst Consulting Group. We have also the co-founder and CEO of Mindsay, Guillaume Laporte. And we have our dear Marisol Menendez, she's the Chief Open Innovation Officer of Spain Startup South Summit. Let's welcome them all. Welcome them all. Hello, Marisol, here. Marisol, Fabio, you want to take a picture? She wants to take a picture. She comes with these crazy ideas, taking selfies and stuff. Okay,
yes,
so
let's take a selfie.
Take a selfie, you see? Oh, no, take one with the audience.
Yeah, well, I'm...
With the audience. Come on, everybody.
Audience, say hi.
Scarlett.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, lift your hair. Not your head, your hands. Your head as well.
Works. Yeah, sort of.
Okay, so Marisol, Fabio, here, here, Scarlett, Genia, everybody.
How's everyone doing after lunch?
Yeah.
Well, they are tired, guys. Tough audience. How are you today? Are you okay? Yes! Okay. Well, really, we are really excited, you can notice, about being here today. I'm super thrilled to have here this amazing panel. Let me introduce myself first. I'm Marisol Menendez, Head of Open Innovation at South Summit, And frankly, I'm an open innovation geek, if anything. So for me, this is a unique opportunity to have this magnificent panel with us here today. But it's not about me, it's about you guys. How about if you begin introducing yourselves in a tweet? What do you do? Who you are? How's your life?
I go first?
Let's begin, Genia.
I'm Genia Gavendo, and I am responsible for Telefónica Innovation Ventures. I think when you talk about open innovation, people know more about Wayra as a brand for Telefónica, but besides Wayra, we also have other vehicles that we use to work with startups. We do direct investments in companies all over the world, and we also invest as limited partners in VC funds in some key markets for us as Silicon Valley and some of the markets where we are present.
That's amazing. And everyone knows Telefónica and everyone knows Wayra. Fabio, what about you?
Thank you. Maybe now that we're talking about open innovation, a lot of people know about Enel and how Enel does open innovation. I am the CEO of Enel Innovation Hubs, which is the arm of the company which is doing innovation. I manage a few innovation hubs around the world, in San Francisco, in Boston, in Brazil, in Chile, in Italy we have 3. We have one here in Madrid, and then we are in Russia and in Israel as well, I was saying before. We scout for the best startups in the energy sector to collaborate directly with Enel.
Amazing. Scarlett?
Yes, so Scarlett Sieber, I am with CCG, and what we do is we're a global consulting firm that really looks at the executive strategy, the digital and innovation implementation, really centered around things that we'll probably talk about here, including technology, talent, and culture, which is one of, I believe, one of the biggest impediments of innovation success.
Amazing. And Guillaume?
Yeah, so I'm Guillaume. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a tech company based in Paris called Mindsay. We are 60 people, 2 years old startups specialized in conversational AI. So everything that is related to chatbots, voice bots, customer support automation. And we are very specialized in one industry, the travel industry. So we work with airlines, airports, travel agencies, and all major companies. So they all have open innovation strategies, and we've been in discussions with many of them over the past 2 years. So yeah, pretty much in that space.
A small company working with the huge guys.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, have you noticed something about this panel? We have a startup, we have a connector, we have a corporation, and we have an experienced player in the open innovation arena. And the basic definition of open innovation at the end is mix and match and learn from the perfect mixture of experiences. And I think that's why it's interesting to have all these perspectives. At the end, what I want you to have is a global perspective on how is it really working with open innovation. And I think we can begin with you, Genia, because you've been a long time in the road, in the open innovation road. And when you're experiencing and living open innovation, of course, not everything is sweet, but you still have good results, and we keep doing it for something. What lessons did you learn in the way?
As you said, Telefónica, we are pioneers in working with startups. We have been doing this for quite some time. And today, open innovation and startups, it's part not only of the innovation area, it has, like all business areas, when they are developing a product or doing something, they already think, that they should look and go for a startup. This is great news. We were able to create this halo effect in the organization. The reality of making this happening, so I think the mentality is there in order to get things to work. It's amazing when it works. I think it's a win-win for Telefónica and for the startups. We get fast time to market, we get access to amazing technology, and for the startup, we are generating business for them. We are either reselling and generating revenues, or we are buying their technology, which is revenues anyways. So it is a great, but it is easy. No, it's not easy. You know, it's difficult, but the more we do it, the better we get at it. And at the end, it's all about the resources that you put in place to support all these processes and the interfaces that you have. You have to keep the interfaces as simple as possible, not only in terms of processes like purchasing or legal, but also in terms of systems integration to make it really easy for a small company to go there and plug into our solutions.
I think, Fabio, you do have as well experience in how to really integrate within the organization, how to be ready and prepared to absorb this innovation. In my experience, the reality of working with others, with the startups, with other institutions, needs to have an integrity within the organization. Mm-hmm. How do you live it within the corporation?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, as we were saying before as well, you need 2 or 3 things to work properly. The first one is like alignment between the top management and whoever is doing innovation. And this alignment comes by the fact of putting innovation in an important role in the company. For us, in Enel, innovation together with sustainability are key pillars of our strategy, our strategic plan. And this is extremely important. And then you put innovation at the top level, I directly reporting to the CEO, but at the same time inside each of the business line of the group, so that you can be really, I would say, pervasive. Pervasive is a bad word maybe in English, but it's like you need to be everywhere. Everywhere in your company, you need to look for needs, look for things that need to be changed, and then bring in startups with a fresh view, a fresh mind to do things in a completely different way. And the way to connect these 2 pieces is by creating a platform, which is digital, of course, that reaches everybody within the company. Everybody on this platform, we call it open innovability. Everybody on this platform can put their need, can put what the problems that they have in their day-to-day job, on what they think is going to happen in the future of a particular industry. And we reach each of them, we select the best of these needs, and then we go to the ecosystem, thanks to this platform, and we ask to startups, do you have a solution for us? Mm-hmm. And then if they have a solution, we do the matching, and we are able to monitor all of this.
It's a complete process, top to down and integrated up until the connection with the startup.
Exactly.
Startups that live it in a real life, like Guillaume, while working with these huge companies as you do, how do you live it from the other side?
It's a very good thing, and it also have very bad points. So it's like high highs and very low lows. The high highs is that when you're a startup and you signed a POC or you signed a contract, a proof of concept, if you're a POC, everyone is familiar, it's great news because it's usually a good amount of money to fund your company. But the bad news is it's going to be very long, very painful to discuss with the stakeholders because, as you said, maybe not everyone is aligned, etc. They maybe not have gone through your platform properly. And those delays and those misalignments can cause the death of the startup. So it's like you're a startup, you're a little monkey, and you enter this cage with like some big lions and elephants, and any of them makes a wrong move and you're dead. But it's good to be among the big ones. So the way we approach it is the first ones are the most criticals. Like the first collaborations that a startup do with the big corporates are the most important ones. So having a good sponsor in the corporates is essential. Someone usually that have already some experience either working at a startup or working with startups is key, so that the processes can go different, like the procurement, like taking 3 months to make one bill and taking then 60 days to be paid is not possible for a startup. So having the good sponsor to speed up those things, and this is also essential. And then having clear guidelines of how to make this project successful. This is also very useful because otherwise you can work for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years for the corporate and you don't know if it's good or bad. So that's a little bit how we experienced starting working with corporates. And now we work with 25 companies in 7 countries, all large companies like Iberia and Vueling, 2 major airlines in Spain, but also airlines across the globe in different continents.
That's amazing. We were discussing yesterday in Open Innovation Forum about this, and we know that we concluded that the internal sponsorship, it's even an emotional sponsorship because people get engaged in the project further than just the strict result, no? And I know, Scarlett, that you have strong experience in making these matches happen. So what's your perspective? You oversee the ecosystem. You see these guys connecting to these others. And is the US a market quite different from what happens worldwide?
So I've looked at this problem or opportunity, depending on how you think about it, from every angle. First, as a startup myself, who was selling into large corporates, in this case, large media and events. And then I was CIO and spending a lot of time looking at this from the banking side, of course, when we were doing this together at BBVA, and then for other institutions, financial institutions in the United States, and now as a connector. And so for me, I think if I'm building off of what both of you said in terms of what that looks like, it's really about transparency more than anything else. And so it's transparency from the corporate side, from your perspective, talking about realistic timeframes and expectations. Certainly big corporates, because of the scale of what we have been with, it takes us a little bit longer to do things. But as direct as you can be and as forward you can be with the startups to say, hey, we're really interested in what you're doing, but this is going to be, you're not going to see any real results for the first year. And then on the startup side too, because one challenge, especially when you are a global company, is that sometimes they have very specific reasons why they're interested in you, like access to your customers at scale, because that's one of the challenges as startups are growing they really don't have. And so it's being very explicit with your key takeaways and what you're hoping to get out of the relationship. And kind of building from there, and I would say, just to piggyback off of the comment that you made, certainly executive sponsorship and sponsorship is key, but another statistic, open innovation roles industry-wide, these CIO types or head of innovations, the typical tenure is about 18 months. So one of the challenges that ends up happening is you have that executive sponsor, and then you move forward, and that sponsor is no longer there. So it's almost getting like 2 or 3 of those key people, so it's not, you're not attaching yourself to one horse, but rather the whole group.
I just wanted to add something regarding the transparency. I think it's a key element. It also differs on culture, therefore countries. I have the impression that in the US, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're more informed than me, but I have the impression that when I talk to corporates in the US, they're very formal in the beginning, formalities, hi, hey, where are you from, blah, 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 weather. But then when you start to talk project, it's like no bullshit. It's like, okay, how much are you going to pay? How much are you going to pay me? How long is it going to take? And what results do we expect? Like the discussion become real very quickly. And I had this experience, at least in France, but also in other European countries, where the discussion stays at the formalities for weeks, if not months. And this is also a deadly disease for startups,
And sorry, no, please go ahead.
You were touching European aspects here and American.
Well, no, I'm not saying all. I'm just saying I noticed this. Yeah.
I totally agree, and I think when you said, Stacey, it's all about managing expectations. I think this is a key element of building the trust with the startup. What works for us in Telefónica is that we have dedicated people that their full-time job is to help startups work with us. So they can help us navigate all the complexities. We do coaching. We help translate what the business area is saying, because sometimes people are saying, oh, I'm going to have this soon. When is soon? For a startup, it can be next month. But for a business area, it can be in 3 quarters. So we have to have these people in the middle, educating and being the translators and facilitating on both sides. And this is something that has been working for us. It can be better, of course. It always can be better.
And I want to add on this, which is, yes, exactly. I was going to add that you need to have dedicated people that do that, because once you find the sponsor, as we were saying before, the sponsor maybe is not going to be there anymore in 6 months, or is going to get promoted. promoted or whatever, it's going to be in the other part of the company. So you need a structure which allows you to be always present and to do real innovation. And the best way to do that as well is to put, in my opinion, the urgency of time on the people that in corporations are doing innovation, which means goals that they need to be reached in the short, in the medium, and in the long term. You give them goals, they need to deliver something, they need to deliver projects with startups, they need to deliver a certain way of doing things, they need to deliver value to the company. And if you put the urgency of time, then all of these discussions that go on forever, they're not going to happen, because the discussion that goes on forever is never going to bring any value.
For sure.
And I agree. You just touched a really critical point, I think, which is the KPIs. Because in Mexico, we have a saying like, tell me how they measured you, and I will tell you how you behave, no? And I think that the fight of KPIs within the organization and also the alignment of these KPIs to whatever you want to achieve, for example, as a startup, is critical to ensure this trust and this transparency, no? Do you perceive this from your perspective, for example, Guillaume? I see that you want to jump. I want to give you...
Well, not specifically, but the KPIs, yeah, it's definitely, like, having clear KPIs, having clear objectives is the key to create urgency. I totally agree with you. It's not something that usually startups want to do, because at the beginning we're very shy. Like, we're already really lucky to be working with these guys, so we'll see how it goes. But, like every business, you have to be a little bit pushy and say, okay, but maybe you're going to kill us in 6 months, so let's do something before then. So I think KPIs is very important, and the culture of results is not implemented everywhere yet. It will still need to do some progress in general in the ecosystems. Then I wouldn't want to go into which ones are better at this or not, but I couldn't tell.
So just real quick on that KPI piece too, I think I love what you were saying about having the startups helping to set goals, but one thing that I've found effective, and this has been pretty rare, and I've worked with hundreds of startups in my corporate time, a few of them said, what are my goals? Like, how am I being measured? So as CIO or head of innovation, how is my boss measuring me? Because what you'll find is, depending on how sophisticated, so someone like Telefonica probably has pretty direct, and NL probably has pretty direct KPIs, but then at least, looking from the financial service lens, we have 5,000 banks in the United States, and a lot of them are not very sophisticated in terms of their innovation initiatives. So if you were to ask them that question, they probably would have no clue how to answer it, which to you says, that's a problem, right? Like, that's probably not someone that, we want to work with yet, or it could still be an interesting conversation because you could derive feedback on your product, they could learn more about you, but you just have to be prepared that this is probably not going to go anywhere.
I think the issue with KPIs, yes, you have to measure everything, because if you're not measuring, you don't know if you're doing well. The danger is to use the wrong ones, and in some cases, focus on too early on revenues or savings can drive the wrong behavior. So having these intermediate KPIs, as you were measuring, like, have I done a POC? How did the technology work? Well, it's super important. Not only, for both sides to see that the relationship is evolving, but for us to help a little bit of corporate anxiety as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting here, the connection between the short-term, mid-term, and long-term objectives, and also the alignment that this has with the general company strategy, If your company is not working towards the disruption, then please do not waste time in disrupting or maybe exciting startups about disruption, So you need to have this internal alignment.
So pay attention also to the fact that I agree, like, in the long term, you need to deliver result, and you don't want to kill something too early, but don't be afraid of killing something, Like, we're talking about innovation. Like, if something doesn't work, it doesn't work for a year, it doesn't work for 2, maybe it's not because the startup is bad and the company is bad, it's maybe because there's no real way to do that together. And so it's better if the startup goes somewhere else and the company goes doing something different,
I totally agree. Like, I couldn't agree more about this statement. We just
let
realized
it go, no?
Like, let it go, yeah. Because we had some projects with some corporates that lasted 2 years, and it was like €1,000 per month. So we're like, well, we keep it, no? It's
just a little,
1,000
yeah.
euro per month. There's 2 of them, it's like 2,000 euro, it's a small salary to pay, etc. But no, it's actually a bad decision. It takes your mind, it keeps a little bit of, a
Drains
virus
you.
inside your mind, it drains
Yeah.
you. You know it's not going to succeed, you know it's not going to grow. So you
Drains power.
you need to get rid of it, and it's difficult when the corporate doesn't take the decision, the startup doesn't take the decision, and the thing goes on, and it die in a painful disease instead of just breaking up properly, and going on with your lives.
Well, we have just a few minutes left. I'm thinking, and when I think, I tend to do strange things, sorry, but I'm thinking that maybe we could finish like with a roundup, with this perspective. I think when we talk about the Open Innovation Game, which is a collaboration game, which is about people, we all have all kinds of experiences. And all of you are seasoned open innovators. I suggest that we finish with a round of the best, the worst, and a call to action that you would do from your own perspective to the ecosystem. What do you enjoy most of working in open innovation? What do you think that we really need to put our hands on? And a call to action.
I can start. The best is, you get to see all these amazing companies and all this amazing technology, meet all these amazing entrepreneurs every day. So this is
It's energetic.
It is energetic. It's really cool. The worst is what can get better. I would love to get this sense of urgency from the startups really setting us the pace, for corporates. And the call to action is let's do our homework to get this going.
Taken.
On my side, like the best is totally the energy. Same thing. Like the energy, the possibility to access technology solutions, anything that like within the company would be almost impossible, super long for us to build. So this is the best. The bad part, like the worst, is that the processes, even if we structure them, we try to make them faster. In any case, we're a big corporation, and so there's a lot of work still to do on the processes.
Well, eh?
But we still have to streamline them, and we will never stop to do that. Like we have to focus, especially my team, to do that in the best way for the sake of startups and also for ourselves. And my call to action is that I really strongly believe that collaboration among startups and corporations is the right way forward because they put the idea, the drive, like the ability to go faster. We can put the knowledge, we can put the facilities, the clients, and the combination of the two things working together would deliver solutions that are like better for the world in a faster way.
Best part, I would say, is every single day is different, which I love. I get bored with the same thing over and over, and I am a big fan of cross-industry collaboration, so whenever I think I know something to a pretty strong degree and I become an expert, then I realize I'm actually not an expert at all, and I learn something else. The most challenging part, I would say, or the bad part, I guess, is these internal bottlenecks on the corporate side. And I really think that stems from a variety of things, but it goes back to culture and putting in place the right strategy because people are against this for a variety of reasons, and a lot of it has to do with psychology is why they're against it. And so the call to action is corporates really focusing on, at the executive level, the why. Why are we doing this? And once that part is answered in the correct way and they're giving the right support, then I think everything else can move forward.
Yeah. Just before I answer that, so I can put it in the right way, by raising hand, who is actually a startup in the audience? Could you raise your hand?
Oh, nice.
Okay, like a 20% something. And who works at a more established company or corporate? Okay, so majority. Good. So I'll put my answer towards the corporates then.
Sorry, who are neither?
Yeah, probably investors.
Cool. Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, so the best part is align everyone within the executive team on your strategy. Like make sure that all the executive team is aligned to make innovation, to work with startups, because this eases up the process so well. Like when corporates are aligned, everything goes much quicker, etc., etc. When there's a couple of people that are not excited about this, everything goes slow. And the worst thing is then, since there is a majority of corporates, is I'll say, going back to processes, etc., I say just fix your procurement to work with startups. Because 3 months procurements and 2 months payment delays is not viable. So start to fix that before working with startups. Yeah, that's it.
Well, we have trust, transparency, and fixed procurement, guys. Let's go for it. Thank you very much. Thank you for these amazing
Thank you.
panels.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you to the panel. Sorry, guys. I just come in talking, and it's much better to listen to you play. Thank you. You heard it. Open innovation exists. It's possible, and it's working. So, we've talked about a lot of big words and expressions this afternoon, and we are going to continue with that, with the biggest of all, which is, nobody's read the program, which is, come on, Paco. It's not sex. Oh, I thought, N26. I was talking general expressions like hypergrowth. Yes, N26 is big, but hypergrowth. Okay, sex as well is, anyway, let's leave it there. Hypergrowth we're going to talk about, and Arthur Bob Johansen notes that hypergrowth is combined of 4 things. He calls them VUCA. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Is this correct? The ones with a hypergrowth experience? It's a complete new world. Even for those who have been there before, this stage of business is always a new dimension. And it changes every time. Okay, so we have an expert to talk to us about this, as already been told by a clever audience, the person that has actually read the program. Well, you all know why you're here. We have 2 fantastic experts. The first one is Valentin Stauf. He's the CEO of N26. He's a German mobile bank, which he co-founded in 2013 with his dear friend Maximilian Tayenthal, who was here last year. Since the initial product launch in 2015, N26 has grown to include more than 3 million customers around 26 markets. The firm has raised more than $650 million. What did I say? $650 million. Sorry, I obviously didn't have my coffee this afternoon. I can see you laughing there. They've raised over $650 million from some of the world's most well-known investors. N26 now ranks amongst the top 10 most valuable fintech companies worldwide. And Valentin was just recently awarded European Manager of the Year by EVP. To facilitate this chat, we have a dear friend of South Summit. She's a fantastic moderator, but she mainly she's Tara Kemlin-Jones, and she is from TCG Fintech Advisory, an expert on digital banks and fintechs in the UK and Europe. And you've probably seen her before because she comes here every year, which is lovely to see them both. Please, let's welcome Valentin and Tara. Now, Valentin and Tara, welcome. Sorry.
Hello, South Summit. I hope everyone is awake. I know that after lunch it always gets a little bit sleepy, but you've had 2 great talks. And I'm going to start with this wonderful opportunity to talk to Valentin, who I don't think really needs very much introduction because he's a bit of a pop star in the fintech community. He's also a very modest guy, so I'm going to start off by embarrassing him. Which he wasn't expecting, and it's probably a bit unfair, but there is one thing that you need to clarify for me. So I have heard reports that every morning outside Klosterstrasse number 26, which is your headquarters in Berlin, that these long queues start forming. Now just tell me, are these people coming for jobs or your autograph? I hope it's jobs.
We only have people starting 2 times a month, so we've now really structured the process, but sometimes it really feels like there's a demonstration going on outside the office. But then in the end, last time I asked, I found out that it was all new starters.
All new starters. So not a single autograph?
No.
Oh, poor Valentine. I'm sure you'll get some.
I'm always sneaking into the pack.
Okay, you'll get some later today. But so, I mean, Elena introduced N26 as a newcomer, but this is a newcomer with already a very big presence, with a very large number of employees, over 1,300, is that right? And obviously a very big valuation as well. You know, 3.5 billion is not something to be ignored. And the theme today is leading a company in hypergrowth. Now, when I think hyperspeed, I don't know about you, but I think Millennium Falcon. I think Han Solo going through an asteroid field. So I'm thinking like customer numbers, you know, funding, US, Brazil, 26 countries. Is that what it feels like?
So, I mean, hypergrowth might feel different for different companies, and it's also a question of how you define it. But if I look back on over the last year, I think last year we started. So mid of last year we were around 500 people, and we're going to end this year with about 1,500 people. So this is quite some change that you have to manage. But I'm a big believer in the cow theory. So you go in, you have a little bit of cows, and you come out stronger. Cows.
Okay, that's a Viennese concept, is it?
Yeah, maybe.
And so, I mean, in terms of defining hypergrowth, what would you say is the definition? We all want to know. I mean, the next question is going to be about hard knocks, because I think how many people in this room have been or would like to be in a startup? Okay, so quite a few people. So I think the issue here is that everyone starts and thinks, you know, they look at Valentin and go, 3.5 billion, he had it easy, he didn't have to do anything, he just turned up one day and then suddenly all this funding was available. I think the reality isn't quite so simple, you know, along the way there've been sort of some tough moments. And I just wondered, before we take off into hypergrowth, whether you could give us a little bit of the early days and the tough bits.
So, I mean, it really started with founding the company on our living room couches. And the first thing, sounds easy, was to get internet. We didn't have internet, and that was maybe the first tougher thing. Then I think before that even, I mean, quitting your job. You have a job, you earn decent money, and then saying, okay, you stop working, and then actually instead of earning money, you put the first 10 or 20,000 euros into your own company where you don't know if it's going to succeed. I still remember when we started the company. Originally, we started with a prepaid card for teenagers the first year. And we brought that product, we raised about 500,000 euros, and we brought that product to market into a test phase. And then we realized actually all the parents were using it instead of the kids. At that point in time, we actually said, okay, it makes sense to do a pivot and build a bank instead of a product that you could deliver to a bank. So we wanted to go for the bigger idea. What was the problem was, at that point in time, that was end of 2013, we had almost spent all the money we had. So we raised 500,000 euros, but by then, I think we had maybe a couple of 10,000s left on the account. We already at that time had a team of about 15 people. And that was a time where I can say I have really not slept for 3 weeks in a row. And that was really tough, because I knew...
10K, 15 people, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, a couple of 10Ks, or maybe 50K or something. And that was really tough because we had 2 more investors. Everybody of the hundreds of investors we talked to dropped out. And that was really a moment of truth for the company. If we wouldn't have raised that Series A or seed round at that stage, we would have been bankrupt, and N26 would have ended there.
Okay, so that was the first big hurdle, which happens to a lot of companies, you know, getting past the seed stage. And then after that, was plain sailing, or what happened after that?
So, like, you know, founding a startup, independent of the size, and maybe from the outside, it looks completely different that we now valued at 3.5 billion, and we have investors from all around the world. But for me as a founder, it was always the same. It's always the same fight. Yeah, it's the numbers might be changing, and you have a bigger team that is supporting you. But in the end, for me, it never mattered if we raised as a company 200 or 300 million, or if we raised 500,000. So the fight is always the same. And you always think from funding round to funding round, and we just touched on it before. The problem as an entrepreneur is there's never moments, or for us at least, the moments of celebration are only a few, because as an entrepreneur, you're pitching, but you already know what's not working. So once you get the money, it's only when you can again start to work on the things that haven't been working that you knew before. So it's always this continuous thing. So I think one thing that I learned over the last years as well is you sometimes need to take time to also celebrate moments. And then we had this offsite only a couple of weeks ago, and we with the whole leader team, and everybody was discussing really tough, almost fighting, and you know, it was a lot of energy in the offsite. And then at one point we said, okay, let's look back where we've been, a year ago, or like really like a year ago, and we had maybe 1 million customers. Now we have more than 3.5 million. We were valued at 500 million. Now we're valued at 3.5 billion. And so at the offside, everybody was kind of fighting and was pushing the company forward. But sometimes you need to go back and say, okay, that's what you have achieved, to be strong to take the next step. And I think that's very important, especially in hypergrowth.
So exactly, the milestone, making sure you've got the milestones. Because in fact, I mean, you are very steady. So last year we had Max Tayantal. I don't know whether anyone in the room was here. Max Tayantal is Valentin's co-founder. And last year he promised us that the Barcelona hub was going to open and that the US was going to be launched. And you've delivered, so congratulations, that's very good. Yeah. But you've delivered more than that. So tell us a bit about your expansion plans.
I mean, reflecting a little bit on what we've done, especially in Spain, and the Barcelona office that we've opened, where we have now around 100 people there, was really an experiment. We wanted to know if we can innovate in Europe. We can go to a new city that is between, around 3 million people, and we can open an office and get the right talent. And for Barcelona, it worked. So what we're now doing, we opened an office in Vienna as well, where we have the first 15 people now. And that's now for Europe. I think the 3 offices is a good distribution.
But you're saying Vienna wasn't a random selection. You did, because you are from Vienna, but that wasn't anything to do with your selection process.
No, we had a very strict selection process. And I think what we realized is that people like to work in the cities that they like to live in. And so if you look at Berlin is the digital capital of Europe, I would say. Then you have Barcelona on the sea, not as German. So if you want to be on the sea, you can work in Barcelona. And then you have Vienna, which is also a great location. And a lot of people from Eastern Europe also like to relocate to Vienna. And so that has been very successful for us to bring the people there. But you still need to do a hard selection. So it's always about not having your own bias for any decisions that you take as an entrepreneur. So especially if you go to Vienna, and I'm from Vienna, so I have a certain bias, but we did a tough research. A whole team did research, and then we decided for Vienna.
An independent research.
Kind of independent.
But it's not just the hub in Vienna which is the fall, isn't it? It's autumn that you're thinking about that. So you've...
No, it's already started, actually.
It started?
We have the first 15 people.
Okay.
We'd like to be 35 by the end of the year. Let's see how much talent we can find.
So it's all go.
Yeah.
And then you've got Brazil. So tell us a bit about Brazil.
Yeah, then we have the US. In New York, we have an office with about 70 people, now going to 100. And then we have a small office in Brazil. So New York and Brazil, we have mainly for our global expansion. The New York team is really focused on the US market, a little bit also on the Brazilian market. And when you look at the company, until a couple of months ago, we were only in Europe, reaching about 300 million customers in Europe, 350 potentially. Now we've started in the US 2 months ago, so it's another 300 million market. And next year, I think by the end of the year, we'll launch in Brazil as well. So that means another 300 million market. So you go from a reach of 350 million to 1 billion in reach in only 12 months. And I think that's very exciting for the whole team, because suddenly you can accelerate much faster. And from my experience, since we've founded the company, it was always most exciting when there was acceleration, when there was either a new market, when there were new products, when the team was growing fast, that's where I myself, and I think that's true for everybody that works with us, accelerates the most in terms of his personal learning curve.
And it's we like digital banks, because digital banks is one of the areas where Europe, I'm sorry for our cousins about the other side of the pond, but Europe is one of the areas where the digital banks have done particularly well. So it is an arena, well, in relation to the US, we'll talk about a bit LATAM, because obviously there are a lot of companies here who've expanded to LATAM, where we maybe have a little bit of a head start. Would you agree with that? Would you say that we've got a little bit more know-how? I mean, obviously there are companies like Chime arising in the States. Do you think we've got a little bit of an advantage point there?
So I think I've experienced that the respect, especially out of the venture capital industry, when it comes to regulation, is much bigger in the US. Because in the US also it's the same in Europe, but in the US it was, for me, I felt it much stronger. When we pitched to investors out of the US 5 years ago, no one was believing that there will ever be a challenger bank that will challenge any of the big players like Bank of America or Chase. They were just saying regulation is too complex and so on. In Europe, I felt that people were much more open, because maybe also because you can start in only one market. At the same time, regulation in Europe made it favorable to go to all the markets quickly. So we started in Germany, but suddenly or quickly we realized we're not a German company, but we're actually a European company. So we started in all the markets, and now we're in 24 European markets and Switzerland.
And that was one of the points I was going to raise, that in a way the European regulators reformed earlier. So BaFin, I mean, obviously you're not in the UK, but you know, a lot of the European regulators were more open to change than, say, an SEC, for example. So that kind of facilitated change in a way in the companies. But they now, you know, there is an advantage. So you would say there is a head start. What about LATAM? I mean, Nubank obviously has been the new kid on the block, you know, completely exploded. It went from 6 million to 12 million customers, like in a year, you know, $1 billion in funding. Does that make you excited? Is that one of the reasons why Brazil has kicked off now, or?
So it's definitely one of the reasons why we go to Brazil, because it's obviously cool if you see other products being successful there and you see the market is ready. So you can take out product risk, basically, to go into the markets where products, Nubank is different. It's focused more on credit products. We are focused more on the account experience. So there's a difference, but it's cool to see that people are ready to sign up for new banking products. And that was definitely one of the driving reasons for us also to choose Brazil as the next market. But I also want to be clear, we currently focus on the US, we focus on the European markets, especially the Spanish market as well. In Spain, we only, now a couple of months back, we launched a Spanish IBAN, so a Spanish account number, before you did get a German one. So we really focused on being successful in the markets that we're in, and then focusing in the US for the next, I would say, half year, and then we'll see when we start in Brazil.
And then we see. Okay, so now we're sort of getting on to the next phase, as it were. Because obviously these things have to be put in context. You know, it's about staying power. You know, you're still at a startup stage, even with a fabulous valuation. But if you put it into context with the Chase, as you mentioned earlier, that's a 350 billion pound organization with a kind of a more solid balance sheet. So, I mean, where do you go from here generically, not specifically? You know, you made a very good point. You know, you're at 3.5. Deutsche Bank's valuation is under 15 billion. You know, that's not that far away. Like, how fast is catch-up? Will you be buying Deutsche Bank in a few years' time?
So what we really do is, and then what made us strong from the beginning, we never looked at traditional competition.
Okay.
When we founded the company, and people ask me, did you look at other banking signups? We never looked at anyone. I looked at Facebook, I looked at Spotify or the team, and from there we built our sign up, we built the product. We never even looked at other products. And I think that somehow is also true today. The beauty of founding a bank from the green field is that you can purely focus on the customer. You don't have all the heritage. You don't have different departments that want to protect revenues, that you don't have old legacy that doesn't let you innovate on the digital product. So I think that's the beauty, and that's what we work with every day. So therefore, we're in a fast track, and that made us one of the fastest growing banks around the planet today, and we very much focused on this customer. That's what also drives the team and myself, is really that we can, as a team, focus on the needs of the customers, because we have a much lower cost base, so we're not always under this pressure to generate more and more revenues. I mean, obviously revenues are important, but we have the freedom of having a profitable model with a good cost base, and so we can focus much more on the customer needs.
And it's not only just the cost base, but the way that you're set up, presumably you're better equipped to harness new technology. You know, we had Paul Meisner talking about ML and how that's going to affect, you know, a myriad of fields. I think to call AI and what we're doing in banking at the moment is a bit of a misnomer, but you presumably are in a better place than a lot of banks with their legacy issues.
I mean, I cannot judge for most of the old banks, but I think there's a huge opportunity, and that's also our mission. I mean, we want to be a bank that lets you live and bank your way. Yeah, we want to give you the freedom, the flexibility that you need. We want to be the most flexible bank account around the world, and we have seen that the whole world got more diverse. You know, everybody is living his life. Today we have many more lives than we had 100 years ago, many different parts. And I think you need to have a bank that is as flexible. And I think we're the only one that can really deliver these things based on technology.
And I mean, just because we're summing up, there isn't a clock here, so I haven't been told when to stop. But one of the things that I think that is important is culture. So if you think about the digital banks, if you think about the disruption, and I think, how many here use a digital bank, an alternative digital bank to an incumbent bank? God, less than half. I was hoping like for 100%. I was hoping everyone would be using a new bank. Well, you know now, download. But what I was going to say is that I think a lot of people are disillusioned with traditional banking. You know, especially, well, I'm not going to say, but Spain is particularly bad on the charges that, you know, are being applied in terms of access to a lot of financing products. So, you know, a new entrant which is going to treat the customer with civility should be able to make good penetration. But it's important to make that culture last. You know, to begin with, it's very easy. You're not focused on profitability. You're not delivering on bottom line. It's over time that will become more an issue. But culture and the culture of an organization is very important. And in a way, you know, you've been lauded by the VCs for, you know, your relationships with the regulators. But do you think your embedded culture from where you're coming now is also an advantage?
Definitely. I mean, the culture that we have is not a blaming culture. It's a culture of opportunity. It's a culture of diversity. I mean, we employ, as I mentioned before, about 1,500 people by the end of the year, 60 different nationalities. I mean, this is a completely international company. And that's where the creativity comes from. Completely different backgrounds, different educations, and I think that's what makes us strong and much stronger than most of the traditional players. I mean, there's this one story when I first brought my dad visited me in Berlin, and he visited our offices, and he went through the offices, and then he said, now I understand why this is completely different than a traditional bank, just because he saw our offices and how we work. It's open space, it's a lot of glass, it's a completely different style of working, it's a lot of things on the wall, so I think this is fundamental to being creative.
Yeah. So, I know.
I know. You can't. It's a fascinating conversation.
You did not leave me in.
He's wonderful. But we have to say goodbye.
But just to say, I hope you will now all sign up to N26, one of the best possible bank accounts to have. I don't have one in the UK because I live in the UK, but I do have one outside the UK. And please, can we all thank Valentine's staff? Thank you very much indeed.
Okay. We have to continue with the program. Thank you, band. It was terrible to say goodbye to Valentin and Tara. I know, fascinating, but we have a very intense program this afternoon, so we have to continue. I'm going to ask you a question. Who knows what innovability is? Anybody? No, not people from Endesa or Enel, sorry. Innovability, anyone else? Good, because I'm going to tell you what it is, and you're going to find out more. This is a vision by Endesa's open power strategy, whose goal is to become the innovation leaders in the energy sector. Toma ya. Eso para empezar a hablar. They plan to achieve the goal together with the best startups from all over the world. And how? You may wonder. Don't wonder anymore. They do it by bringing together innovation and sustainability. This is innovability, innovation and sustainability, to address technological challenges whose solutions are expected to create value for Enel while tackling some of the world's major issues reflected in the 4 sustainable development goals that they are covering, which are, or they're committed to, quality education, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, and climate action. Pretty well for Enel and Endesa. Well, the next fireside chat is going to focus precisely on that. And we have 2 fantastic guests. The first one is the head of business development and transformation at Endesa, and the second is the CEO of DeCube Madrid. Please welcome Andrés Manchón and Alberto Rodríguez. There. Welcome, Andrés. Alberto.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello, Andrés.
Hello. Thank you very much. How are you?
Fine. And you? Are you comfortable?
Excellent, excellent.
For the questions of everybody.
Of the public?
No, I'm joking. I'm going to do the questions for you.
Okay.
So Elena has told that in the title of this fireside chat, there are two sentences. The first one, you know that I am an entrepreneur. I am from this world, and we use in startups strange words like pivot, disruption, these things that nobody knows what this means. But you use a very strange word called innovability.
Right.
That is a combination of 2 words. I would like you to explain to me.
Right. I think, Elena, that wasn't in the what we have arranged, but Elena has already told you what innovability means, which is, you're right, a term, an expression that we have minted in Enel Group, and specifically in Endesa, by the addition of 2 very known words and concepts, which are innovation and sustainability. And these 2 are words that, in fact, are not at the same level. Innovation, we regard innovation as a mean, and sustainability is a goal, a very core goal, by the way, for a company like us. So we understand innovation not only as a tool to boost our businesses, to achieve greater efficiency, greater productivity, to design and launch better products, but, and more specifically, to find the right answers to our main sustainability challenges, which are quite a lot. And when I say sustainability challenges, I mean to say it in its broadest sense. Not only issues relating to our environmental conservation, efficient use of resources, but addressing all the needs of all our stakeholders, from the very first customer to the very end employee. Okay. So, in fact, let me state, Alberto, that most of our innovation projects are directly linked to one of the United Nations to the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. Okay, the so-called SDGs. Okay, and those are first, affordable and clean energy. Second, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, and third, climate action. Okay, we are addressing very directly these 3 specific objectives of the United Nations. Okay, so we regard sustainability challenges, in fact, as a moving picture. Okay, in fact, not very long ago we were all talking about, the preservation of our environment, But for these very last years, we all speak about securing the future of our planet. I mean, we are changing the target and the goals. So the what is changing, but we think that the how is changing as well. And why? It's mainly because the current global digital and cultural transformation we are undergoing, and very particularly in the energy sector. Okay, so that's why, or that's another additional key reason why we think that innovation is the only way to hold and to address a true commitment with sustainability. Okay.
Right. And what about the rest of the sentence? Because with innovability, we were like shocked, but doing well by doing good. What do you mean?
Yeah, well, that's another wordplay, very simple one. But what we mean with that is that even though there was a time in which typically there was a common perception that only the huge companies with large resources were the ones called and the ones capable to innovate and to care about sustainability. Nowadays we think the other way around. We do think that only the companies that innovate and care about sustainability will be the ones in the medium and long run that will have the best results. Okay, so the wordplay is that the ones that innovate and care about sustainability, the ones that do good, will be the ones that will get the better results. So they will be the ones that will be doing well. Okay, so that's what's behind this simple wordplay. For us, innovation and sustainability is not a take it or leave it issue. I mean, they represent for us, an essential commitment. And if we do think, and we are very much convinced that if we don't innovate and care about sustainability, we won't remain relevant in the medium term. And so that's what we think. But even more in the stage at which our sector is, our industry is, which, as most of you will know, is rapidly changing and dramatically undergoing a transformation. So innovation will be the key. That's our understanding to be a winner in the medium term. And in fact, these two concepts, again, innovation and sustainability, are really key cornerstones in the strategic plan of Endesa and of Enel. Okay, and well, in fact, that's why we're here today, and that's why we've been very, very linked to this event from the very beginning. Okay.
So you know that most of the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystems all around the world, the successful ones, there are lots of stakeholders, obviously startups or entrepreneurs, venture capital, government. We have a lot of people from the government, but especially this year I saw in the list a lot of large corporations, a lot. And well, this probably makes sense, I don't know, because this is a startup community, but why Endesa, as a large corporation, wants or needs to be here?
Well, we are very, very committed with South Summit. In fact, we are a founding member of this event, and we've been here systematically for every year, and this is the 6th edition in which we participate. We proudly participate. So we really believe and are convinced about the goals and the sense of this event. The reasons behind our participation and our involvement in this event has to do with our innovation strategy. Okay, our innovation strategy, there are many innovation strategies, but the one we follow and the one we believe in is what we call, and some others call, open innovation. What does this mean? This means that it's very obvious that the ones that know better our business, I mean, it's obviously ourselves, and that's nothing. I don't say you anything that you don't know, but particularly in the stage at which our industry is, as I said, very rapidly transforming and evolving. We do think that it's crucial for us to open our doors, to open our windows, and to be open to new ideas and to other relevant actors. Okay, which are those relevant actors? For us, are universities, technical centers, research centers, suppliers, employees, of course, and last but not least, of course, small entrepreneurs and startups.
But this, Andres, this is interesting because as a company, I'm not an expert in energy and in utilities, but I understand that you can cooperate with these institutions that you have been mentioning, but specifically about the startups, this is keep me how? Why are you interested in startups?
Okay, about the startups, well, said and explain our interest in startups. The next, step would be why we're here, and we are here because we regard this event as the best one, at least in the south of Europe and all the Latin American ecosystem, and the best conclave for meeting startups, okay, and the best marketplace for startups and companies. And why our interest in startups, Alberto? So we do believe that, even though we might seem, big corporates and startups like animals of different species, we do think, and we are very much convinced about our complementarity, and even more than that, because typically complementarity adds up to 100. Okay, we believe in more than 100. We believe in synergies. We believe in 2 + 2 is more than 4. Okay, and I think those type of synergies arise in a proper collaboration model between corporates and startups. Okay, and that's what we modestly try to do. We more specifically, I could point out 3 reasons why we are so interested in startups. Okay, first one would be that startups are typically born directly in cutting-edge technologies. Okay, while a company like Endesa is necessarily more focused on mainstream technologies just to run our mainstream business. But obviously a new startup is 100% focused on a new technology. So we see startups as a key lever for us for identifying and knowing and adopting new technologies. Okay. Mm-hmm. Secondly, is that of course typically startups promote new business models, but we consider them, we regard them themselves as a new business model. So because of their new methodologies, their new way of working, their agility, so we think that our collaboration with them is a key help for us for foreseeing new business models, at least in our industry, which by the way will be key. The business models in the energy sector will change. There's no doubt about that.
And now the big question, because there are lots of startups here listening to you. So now we know why you want startups to be inside Endesa. Why startups could be interested in working with you at Endesa.
Well, when I talked about this complementarity are from both sides, and I think this synergy are for both sides. Okay, not only for us, of course, but as well for the startups. We think that a company like Endesa and like Enel offers startups like a priceless platform for testing proof of concepts. I think We have a huge infrastructure to test new ideas. We have a very wide network of laboratories all around the world. And what I would say that it's more important, we have an excellent capacity for helping them to scale up. Okay? Why? Because here in Spain and Portugal, we have around 12 million customers with whom we have a monthly relationship. It's not so difficult to add a new service, a new product, a new way to, okay? And typically in startups, many times it happens, I guess you know, there are brilliant ideas, but the failure is in the stage of scaling up, okay? In that stage, I think we can help a lot. We have 12 million customers in Spain and Portugal, but Enel has 70 million customers in 30 countries around the world. Okay, so that's invaluable platform for testing proof of concept.
You know, I had a professor on entrepreneurship, and he always tell. His name is Bill Aulet. He wrote a book called Discipline Entrepreneurship, and the most important thing for a startup is a paying customer. So
right.
This is good for us.
We have many paying customers.
We are running out of time, so my last question, you know that we launched the Cube. It's an innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem, and we have your innovation hub of Enel in our place. So what does it mean for you? How do you see this collaboration?
Let me first introduce the concept of Innovation Hub. Enel, with this commitment with innovation, Enel has created 10 innovation hubs all around the world, okay? In areas either with a very large technology development or large customer base. We have innovation hubs in Silicon Valley. We have a great innovation hub here in Madrid. I think you've heard about it. We have another innovation hub in Milan, another one in Tel Aviv, another one in Santiago de Chile, and another 5 all around the world. Okay, and the Cube, which is our innovation hub here in Madrid, which is not only an innovation hub for Spain and Portugal, it's the main innovation hub of Enel across Europe. Is one of the, I would say it's the most important innovation hub of Enel, and is a place by which Enel tries to get closer to innovators. Enel wants to be where innovation happens and wants to get closer to innovators. We could extract easily a declaration of intentions out of here, and it's true, believe me. Enel and Endesa want to be where innovation happens and want to be where innovators are, not the way around, okay? And that's part of our understanding of the thing. And specifically with the Cube, we, during these past 2 years that it's been working with as an innovation hub of Enel, you've been scouting and identifying solutions, ideas, and startups all across all our business lines and all across our value chain end to end. But if you ask me to identify a single issue in which we would like to ask the Cube to help us with, that would be, the one related with the ecological transition and decarbonization. Okay, that's the one we would like the Cube to help us most. Okay, and regarding technologies, the Cube is the one innovation hub out of those 10 I told you, mandated to explore, to scout and identify the best solutions around the world regarding a specific technology like IoT, okay, Internet of Things. So it's a very core innovation hub of us. And I could tell you about very specific examples that we are working with.
I'm really sorry because we are running out of time. So thank you very much, Andres.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for the explanation, and we give time to the rest of the people.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much.
Excellent, excellent. Just a quick question. How many of you have paid in a shop with a mobile phone? You know, raise hands. Have you paid in a shop with a mobile phone instead of cash? Many times? Many times? Raise hand. Okay. So a lot of people. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? You know, easy, quick, hassle-free. Hassle-free? Are you sure? This is why our next panel is entitled Visible versus Invisible, the responsible application of friction in digital experiences. And to moderate this panel, we have brought a philosopher. How cool is that? Yes, we have brought a philosopher. She is, first of all, she's a woman, so don't expect any bearded man, Aristotle style, forget that, okay? And she's also the co-founder and CEO of Equanima, a philosophical company which makes people and other companies and organizations think better. So please, let's welcome María Ángeles Quesada and her panel. María Ángeles. Yeah, here. Welcome, María Ángeles. Because we were running a bit late, that's why María Ángeles is going to introduce the panel. It's not that I've forgotten, okay? Because then they repeat the same thing, so she's going to do it. Thank you, María Ángeles.
Thank you, Elena. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, South Summit, for having me here. And I am in a very good company today. And I'm going to introduce them. Brian Farrell, Executive Creative Director of BBVA. Clara Durodi, author of the first book on AI in financial services, and also chair of Cognitive Finance Group. And Quique Belenguer, Behavioral Economics, Global Leader BBVA. Well, we are very glad to be here today, and we're going to discuss about, as Elena said, about cashless economy. We're going to discuss about digital experiences, friction in these digital experiences, and in this panel titled Visible versus Invisible, the responsible application of friction in digital experiences. So let's go into start, okay? First, I would like to ask you some questions. You have to participate, please. Who thinks technology is something neutral? Can you raise your hand if you think technology is something neutral that we can use for good or for bad? Okay, don't be shy. I mean, we're here to, okay. Again, just to have a, okay. More people. Yeah. Who thinks money is just a tool for transactions? Only just that. Okay. Thank you. Well, and who has thought about the implications of a cashless society? Who has thought already about this? Oh, come on. Okay, not many of you, okay. Good. Okay, so you know I am a philosopher, so I like asking questions. So let's start with, what is a cashless experience? Can you tell us?
Sure. So obviously there's a lot of cashless experiences, a credit card, mobile pay, QR code is a cashless experience. But I think we want to focus this conversation today on the experiences that are using new technologies, RFID, Bluetooth, machine learning cameras to create really seamless, frictionless experiences. Within BBVA, we're testing a lot of these technologies through different pilots, and a few examples of pilots that we've launched publicly. In the cafeteria environment, we launched a pilot where you pay with biometrics. So you connect your phone to a totem that has cameras, and you can bring your tray up to the totem. One camera reads all of the items on the tray, another camera measures your face or the measurements of your face, and the payment happens automatically, and you move on. Another experience, it's basically like the Uber for restaurants, where you can reserve the table, you can order, and you can pay or share the payment with your friends at the table, ultimately removing the step of having to ask for the bill from the waiter or having to pay with the waiter. Another one that we recently launched here in Madrid with McDonald's in the northern neighborhood of Pozuelo, connecting a mobile phone with your license plate. So
You can make your order through the phone, and as you drive up through the drive-through, there's a camera that recognizes your license plate, and then you just pick up your food and drive off. That also, the payment happens automatically. So we're testing a lot of these new technologies within the payment experience to figure out how seamless can we make these experiences without creating friction or tension, either with the user or with the bank.
Okay. We titled the panel Visible versus Invisible. So can you maybe explain us what is visible here or what is invisible here? Maybe these non-frictional experiences. Okay. Kike or Clara?
Well, I can talk a little bit about the invisible. Here's how I reached this point of philosophical reflections to better understand what the invisible means to our lives, our financial lives. So my background is financial services. I used to do the thing. I'm trained as a fund manager, and I spent most of my career in the City of London, where I live in London. So in 2014, I left the corporate world where I had a management experience, and I decided to go and research two main things. One was trust in humans. How do we build it and how we destroy it? And also how we can encourage trust or build or redefine trust with technology. And then I moved on to research the intersection of neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and wealth management. And my final point of destination is this invisible place called episodic memory, which is our past experiences, which determine how we save and how we invest. Things which we can't even put finger on, to things like how we registered, how our parents spending money or investing or saving money when we were, 2, 3, very young. That's the type of memory we can't recall, and is the invisible memory which conditions us to make financial decisions. And then I moved on, and in my current work, I spend a lot of time working with decision makers in financial services, primarily board of directors, where I try to explain, and they invite me to advise them on long-term strategy with artificial intelligence so much in such a way that they are not widening the gap between engaging with their customers through technology and staying close to their customers. So I'm one of the proponents of the invisible force, which actually dictates, unknowingly to us, dictates how we spend money. And my major concern is that as we spend money with our face or with our fingerprints, two major concerns here. One is that our brain doesn't register when we make that kind of spending. And at the end of the month, we have to face the reality, which is paying back. And the other thing is, longer term, is the storage and management of the biometric data we collect from our customers. Because if we lose that data or someone hacks it, it's much more difficult to change a face than to change a password to an email.
Yeah, okay, Kike.
Yeah, I can add that, and basically around the question of visible against invisible is something that we discussed in BBVA with Brian. No? So the idea of having invisible payment is great because it's really comfortable. You don't have to carry your wallet, you don't have to carry your cash, sorry. But that has some implications because when you're paying with cash, you have really close what we call pain of paying. Paying is painful, and we don't like it. But it has a purpose. It's to control yourself. Because if you have this ability to postpone all your sacrifices to the future and you don't even see them, you're actually feeling better in the short term, but you may find, like in the long term, that you are making bad decisions. So the question here is how we balance that. We should go to a society in which we give our clients frictionless experiences. But how can we help them to keep control on their finances? So there are a couple of things that we can do. Basically, on one side, it's working on how we make visible, the pain of paying. Maybe it's just with a push notification in your app, like creating a new model of interaction with money. And on the other side, it's we are having this on expenses. What are we doing on savings? If we are going to automate everything, it's something we are working with Programa Tu Cuenta, this other project that the design people in BBA they are developing. It's, for example, rounding up your credit card. You are not seeing, it's invisible, but it's saving. So can we help clients using this new seamless world to achieve their financial goals? And I think that's the question, and something that's still unsolved, but we need to keep on talking to find better ways to help everybody deal with their financial
I totally agree, and I would like to add something from my perspective, because I think we are in a society that we're going for like frictionless or seamless or hassle-free relationships too, and money always is a crystallization of relationships. So we are having these superficial, easy relationships now because we don't have conflict. But what I want to say here is that as human beings, if we don't have this dialectic, this friction, this conflict in our relationships, they are not going to be meaningful. They're not going to be so interesting. Sure. So I agree with you in that, what you're saying. And I would like, because Clara said something about, as I understand it, about the meaning of money for human beings. And let's explore the meaning of money in general and in cash in particular, just a little bit, okay? And we can go back to cashless later. Just to go deeper on this aspect, the meaning of money and cash. Who wants to? Yeah, Clara, maybe you want to?
Thank you. So in my previous life in financial services, I used to work in wealth management. It's a direct engagement with generations of people preserving and trying to build wealth, or finding ways to retain that wealth for the next generation. So what I've learned many things from working directly in this space. So it's not banking through the usual type of banking. It's wealth management, directly engaging with those who have certain wealth. And that experience actually has enabled me to see that every single one of us, we have a different relationship with our money. And money is the reflection in many ways of how we see life and how we engage with life, and sometimes how organized or disorganized we are. And sometimes we can be disorganized because we're going through a very difficult time. Divorce, for instance, it's an example. Sometimes we are faced with decisions like getting married. You know, it's an event in our lives which define or reshapes the way we engage with money. And sometimes we look at our parents who have a different relationship with their money. For instance, my dad said to me, he's like, I used to save money every time of the day, but not anymore. How many years have I got left? I want to enjoy what I've got. So money is the measure of how we have the relationship we have with that type of medium. And I think because we are evolving, and every day, almost every day we change as a result of the environment we engage with, and experiences and people, and what happens to us. We lose our jobs, we get married, whatever happens, we get divorced, we have a new child. That relationship, that's where the banks actually can come in and actually help us manage those events in a better way, educate us. And I think that's where I believe deploying technologies like predicting technologies like artificial intelligence actually create a medium for banks to make a difference, a positive difference in clients' experiences. So a very long answer to a very short question.
Thank you, Clara. I'm going to ask you to be very brief, okay? You want to comment on that? The meaning of money or cash?
Okay, maybe just one idea that I thought. One thing that we talk in behavioral economics, one concept is called mental accounting. It's how we classify money, because ideally money, it's just money, but it's not. I mean, depending on the origin and the destination of money, we use it differently. So you won't spend the same way money that came through your salary, that came as money that the government gives you back because of your tax deductions or whatever. So the way we use cash as well can work from a mental accounting perspective. You have like some money for restaurants, money for the cinema, and you can, if you go out tonight and you put like 50 euros in your wallet, how much money are you going to spend? 50 euros. That's it. You have your pot for tonight. But if you don't have that, again, you're losing control. So payment method is not neutral. It's like if you go to a restaurant and you are charged either by the plate or by bite. By bite would be like more efficient if you were Mr. Spock, but how annoying would it be to have the waiter there like counting like 1 bite, 2 bite? I mean, you would enjoy your dish. So the way we use the money, like as cash or a credit or invisible payment, is not neutral and have like a lot of impact, and we have to understand that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to introduce the next topic because it's very important for what we're discussing here, and I would like to talk about the concerns we have with these experiences. For example, because for me, cash is something that gives autonomy and power to people, individual freedom in a way, as opposed to the system. Because when we have cash, maybe, the poorest people in the world, they can find 2 coins around the corner and they can go buy bread. And so this is important that we take this into account in this case. And so what about this problem? I mean, what about the poorest people in the world? What about this plan B out of the system that can be cash? And what about data? Of course, I mean, what about we are giving info to companies, to banks, with these digital experiences? So what about data? How can we use data in a responsible way? Or are we going to accept this lack of privacy as human beings? So,
Sure.
Brian?
I mean, I can talk to the user effects, and I don't want to paint innovation as a bad thing. I think there's a lot of really good effects with these types of seamless experience in terms of time efficiency, in terms of security for the merchants, in terms of control of inventory and getting a better relationship with the user. But there are challenges that we need to figure out, particularly in terms of, from a psychology perspective, we've talked about it, but in terms of our perception of the value of money. I mean, the total spend with credit cards is more than with cash. We can assume that the total spend with invisible payments will be more than with credit cards. So are we creating this false sense of financial freedom? From a sociology perspective, cash in a lot of our countries, specifically in South America, is a really, really important method of trust building. So when I want to build your trust, either socially or professionally, I take you out to dinner or I take you for a coffee, and that moment of exchange of me paying is a really important moment for the two of us to create that relationship. So if we remove that moment, are we removing the opportunity to build trust? And also from the other side, I mean, there's challenges from a business perspective as well. A really big bank in the United States, they have seen, I can't say the name, but they have seen that as they remove friction from these payment experiences, fraud complaints go up, which makes complete sense because at the end of the month, you receive your monthly bill. You don't have that capture of the payment moment in your head because it's either been removed completely, it didn't exist, or the impact of it has been reduced so greatly that you see your bill and you say, I don't remember this, I don't remember this, I don't remember this, fraud, fraud, fraud. And to respond and resolve fraud complaints is very expensive. So, I mean, I think we're seeing both sides. We're seeing really positive effects and we're seeing really big challenges that we need to solve for.
Yeah, I would like to hear something about the use of data. I know maybe you want to say something, but very brief, please, because we don't have much time.
As brief as I can, and that's called data statement. And my submission to you today is that over time, I don't know, 5 years time, 10 years time, clients of banks, as they realize the value of their own data, because that's where our society is going. Finally, we're waking up to understand how much our data actually counts for businesses. So banks should expect, on a horizon anything between 2 to 10 years' time, that their clients will want to receive on a monthly basis a data statement, exactly as they receive a bank statement with how much money they have in the bank account. Because we want to know what's happening to our data. We want to know how many times our data has been hacked. Our data, not general data of clients. We want to know how many times our data has been sold, and that can be tracked. So that's as short as I can get on data statements. And also the use and the storage, as I mentioned earlier, of biometric data. It's very, very important, and banks need to ensure that they have they are the custodian of data for their clients and the customers. And this is where the future banks, successful banks, will be the banks who can be the custodian. They can feel, their customers can come to them to feel safe. My data is safe with you, exactly as my money is safe with you.
Kike, do you want to add something?
No, it's okay. I think they covered everything. I don't know more than that.
Well, okay. So we're going to address the last question, and then we're going to have a final statement. The last question is very important, I think, for responsible innovation, because how can we inform or communicate or get people involved in this process of creating this technology? So how are we going to make a society where we want to live in? Yeah? So go with your ideas, these last 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think the position of BBVA is, I mean, we don't want to be the parents. We're not going to prohibit people from doing something. We want to provide really important, contextual, personalized information through advice and recommendations, and let the user make the ultimate decision. And I think a perfect example of this is Uber. Back in 2012, 2013, when they introduced the increased pricing, or surge pricing, and it was a really big problem in the United States, and lots of people woke up on Saturday and Sunday mornings after going out late with a $400 bill for a 20-minute ride. And all they did was introduce one layer of friction to solve the problem. Now, instead of reserving your car immediately, when it's a surge price, you get the page that gives you exactly the estimated total, so the right information to make the decision, plus the ability to say, yes, I confirm I want to pay this charge, or no, notify me when the surge pricing has reduced. That is our approach as well. Give the information in a really concise way, in an intuitive way, but let the decision ultimately be the user's.
What about co-creation with the public, or trying to involve more stakeholders, or more agents, different agents, philosophers, for example, or different people, all types of consumers? What if you want to add something here?
Sure. It's always important to bring the clients, like that observation that Brian brought about how in South America money has like a signaling power. So it means something else than just the transaction itself. But as well, we have to bear in mind that people have not really clear preferences, and we need to deduct what their needs are sometimes when we are forecasting. And you're in design, you probably know that better than I do, but from a behavioral science point of view, we are kind of a skeptic on the answers that we get from people when they are assessing things that they don't really know, because people can make judgments when they have a context. So you judge something because it's in between something and something else. But if you're putting them an idea that comes out from nowhere, they're going to struggle to give like a real valid idea. So we need to find proxies to understand how can we solve their lives. I don't know if they're going to tell us when we go with the invisible payment tools. Well, I mean, I may lose control of my savings. Something that we have to bring the connection. So they may say, we may lose control. Say, okay, we lose control, but control, what does it mean? So expenses and savings. So can we create a new experience that helps them from the automation to gain back the control of their financial goals? So for me, that would be the kind of approach in terms of co-creating. So yes, but with really smart questions.
Okay. So do you want to add something? Because we have 1 minute and a half left. If we want to add something, or we can go with a final statement maybe.
Yeah,
one idea we want to give to the
Yeah,
audience.
I mean, I agree with everything he said. I mean, the co-creation happens through bringing really smart people together that bring different perspectives, obviously testing with our users and hearing the things that are working or not. I mean, I think the big outstanding question is, and something we didn't get to, but they want innovation. They're asking for innovation and they're adopting it quickly. But the big question is, do they know what they want? And how do we help them understand what they need? Because their behavior and needs sometimes go against what their desires are showing.
Yeah, I think it's very important that we have these kind of discussions, but we need to think about what really want, because it's not easy to know what we want. I know, because I work with people and it's not so easy to know what we want, and we need to be educated, of course. We need to have this context, this sensibilization too about the matter. So I think I'm going to end up the panel. I will ask some questions, if you let me, to the audience, just to leave you some thinking. I really will say to you that, do you think technology is something neutral now? Do you think technology has an agenda? Do you think we can co-create technology maybe with the people leading this change? And I just want to say that maybe we don't have to lose control to technology, because we are human beings and we have to be the leaders of our lives at the end of the day. This is what I think as a philosopher, but thank you very much. You want to add something?
I'd like
Final
to
statement? Okay.
Just one point. As we move towards a data-driven industry, we will be using more and more artificial intelligence to be able to make sense out of the data. To deploy AI responsibly and ethically, something which I will be discussing tomorrow in a keynote, ethical AI, we need to have a multidisciplinary approach to thinking about this technology. Data is biased. It's not neutral. So we need to make sure that we, as you said, we are in control of how we deploy this data. And yes, we need to understand what is AI, how it's deployed, what it means to our lives. None of us needs to hide under, under a rock and say AI is too complicated. I don't want to find out what it is. You have to educate yourself in that field.
Okay.
And
Okay.
allow me to say that this is the reason for most professionals here. I wrote a book called Decoding AI in Financial Services, and it's to empower professionals and decision makers about what AI is and what it means to our industry.
Okay, so let's be empowered. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, what an interesting panel. Who would have thought? Put a philosopher in your life. Amazing, right? What an interesting sentence that Clara said. It's more difficult to change a face than to change a password. Think about that. All right, let me ask you another question. How many of you have achieved a goal today, or several goals today? Any goals? Well, many. Well, by being at South Summit, you probably have achieved several goals in one day, right? We know that those who write down their goals are 95% more likely to achieve them, and that the two best practices for goal setting include measuring them, and having a deadline. Well, one format to do this is the practice of the OKRs. Do you know what they are? Yes, you do. It's written in the program. I'm not going to ask because, we have somebody who's going to talk about that. They stand for Objectives and Key Results, a system that originated at Intel and was later popularized by Google. OKRs are now the way many companies like LinkedIn, Twitter, and more said they achieve their goals. Our keynote speaker is going to talk to us precisely about that, and it is a real thrill to introduce her. Because despite her being now the head of Google for Startup, she's always and will always be the heart and soul of South Summit. Please welcome Sofia Benjumea. Sophie. dun, dun, da, 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 dun, dun, da, 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 dun. Hi. Sophie. There she is.
Gracias, Helen. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I know you're all tired of spending here the whole day. I hope you've enjoyed this first day at South Summit. I'm here to talk, looks like pretty boring, about methodologies and processes, but I hope it's insightful and it's helpful at some point in the life of your company. So the reason I'm here, I'm the head of Google for Startups in Spain, and the reason we exist is because we want to level the playing field for founders across the globe, to really give the same opportunities to a founder that starts in Spain, Silicon Valley, London, whatever they start, to actually have the same opportunities to succeed. And that by bringing the best of Google. And why are we doing this? I tend to show the typical picture of the founders, Larry or Sergey, in their garage when they were starting more than 20 years ago. And the reason I show this is for two reasons. One, because Google wouldn't be the company it is today if they had started 20 years ago somewhere else. It will never have become what it is today, probably. And this is one of the problems that we're trying to tackle. And the second is that even if it's more than 100,000 employees company today, global present, they haven't forgotten how tough it is to start and how important it is, this ecosystem that surrounds you, and all the knowledge that they got for actually is having started in Stanford, in Silicon Valley. They got the best experts, they got the best investors, they got really the industry insights to turn an idea into what it is today, Google. So today I want to just roughly explain to you a little bit of what we do. So we have several accelerators. We have Residency. We just actually open applications. We have Growth Lab, which is a short accelerator to help startups really grow and go international. And we have GFS Accelerator, Google for Startups Accelerator, that we're running this month in October, also in Malaga, focused on cybersecurity. It's a program much more focused on deep tech startups and helping on product. But the core is an example of this picture, which is Advisor Summit, which is we're bringing the best of Google to the startups. And that best of Google, it's mainly about bringing Googlers, bringing experts from the company. And as we started with the obvious. Okay, we'll bring our products, or we'll bring experts in sales, or experts in internationalization. And then we realized, digging a little bit in what can we bring from Google to the startups, we realized that there was some magical asset that we had, which was the processes that we have as a company that we use on a daily basis that have led us to go from the garage to our company. The processes that have helped us maintain our culture from what we are today to what we are today, and the ones that actually have driven us to have an excellent execution, because as we'll see after, the ideas are worth nothing. So as Peter Drucker said, culture is strategy for breakfast. And we don't take that much into account culture, especially when we're small. Then it starts to appear, the culture of your company. And it's easy to maintain the vision. It's easy to maintain the communication. It's easy to maintain even the culture that has automatically appeared in your team when your team can share 2 pizzas, and that's it, and everything goes well. But what about when you scale? If you want to scale your culture, if you want to keep the communication, if you want to keep the vision, you need to establish some processes to really make it happen. So at Google, we have some examples of that. We want to maintain a culture of innovation. We have 20%. So any Googler can actually devote 20% of the time to work on something totally different. We have tools to maintain the transparency, for example, TGIF, which is something that they created when we were 20, in which every Friday, the founders of the company, of the leadership of the company, stands up on a stage like this and shares confidential information and everything that we have, that Google is doing in different areas with everyone in the company. And they trust that none of us is going to be sharing it, and they make us part of all these little projects that are happening within Google. And these are just examples. And the next one, which we're talking today, is OKRs. So this is John Doerr, is a famous investor. He was one of the first investors in companies such as Google, Amazon, pretty smart guy. And he implemented this methodology in Google back in 1999, and is the actual methodology that allowed us to scale from the 20, 30 employees that we're now to the 120,000 employees that we're now. And we're still using it. And it allowed us to execute on the plan. Because as John Doerr said, ideas are worth absolutely nothing. You need a framework. You need a plan. You need excellence in execution. And I'm not saying you all need to implement this, but you need to find your methodology to just make sure that everyone in the team is aligned. So what is this? Basically, OKRs stands for Objectives and Key Results. You still have to have your vision and your mission as a company. And you probably have your strategic goals 5 years from now. But then you need to really define what are the objectives that are going to trigger where you go, and then how are you going to get there. The objectives is, as we're saying, where do I need to go? And the key results are the how do I know that I'm getting there? What needs to happen for me to accomplish on that goal, on that objective? And this seems like super obvious, easy. Yeah, it's super tough. It's very, very difficult, especially not to think that key results, it's tasks. It's not about tasks. It's really about what are the ingredients that need to happen, like the perfect temperature for everything to happen right way. And the benefits are huge. It helps discipline and engagement, because everyone in a company is part of a definition of the OKRs. It forces focus. It's all about transparency. Even at Google, we can have access to most of the team's OKRs. I have Sundar's. Sundar has mine. Everyone knows what's happening. And it also creates collaboration, because I know who's doing what are their objectives, and actually the cross-collaboration, because maybe my objective or my key result requires the support of someone else's teams. And of course, the alignment. One of the goals of this is you can actually go and stop every single person in your company and ask them, what is the objective? What is the goal? And they'll know how to answer. Where are we heading? And we're all heading in the same direction. So just a couple of examples. Basically, to differentiate objectives and key results are about the outcome. Objectives, where do I need? It's inspiring and sets direction. Key results, how do I know that I'm getting there? It measures the progress towards that objective. And then there are the tasks, the initiatives, but that's the output. That is, what will I do to get there? They need to be set frequently. Normally, in companies such as us, we do them quarterly. We've implemented them in many startups, and at the beginning, when you're just changing and you're just figuring out, many startups, for example, decide to go and do them monthly or every 6 weeks. For example, Frontity, one of the startups, they started with 6 weeks. But make them frequent. Do not create too many, 4, 5 the most. Make sure that you're updating the progress regularly. Again, it requires discipline. They have to be publicly available. Again, it's all about transparency. And they need to be graded each quarter. The objectives, again, need to be significant, concrete, action-oriented, and inspiring. And the key results need to be SMART. And that stands for specific, measurable. You need to be able to measure. Otherwise, they're totally worthless. They need to be achievable, but at the same time ambitious, realistic, and time-bound. And I go back to this ambition. Google is also a company where part of our culture is about 10x, is about risking. They've created a safe environment for our employees to have people dare to risk. And OKRs are also a framework that allows for ambitious, because they're not tied to performance. Because we know that difficult goals boost the effort of the teams, the passion of the teams, and the persistence. And this is very, very important. I'll give you just an example, internal example. This is Sundar Pichai, our actual CEO, and at that point he was commanded to launch Chrome. First year, he said, okay, my target is going to be to launch Chrome and have 20 million users. Didn't make it. He got to 10 million. He said, okay, back to setting new OKRs. Now I'm going to aim 50 million, sorry. He didn't make it. He reached 30 million. And then he said, okay, now I'm going to say 100 million users. And there he got it. He got 120 million. And that's the aim of the OKRs. Just constant. Don't lose what's your objective and be ambitious. Dare to aim higher that you're going to get. Even if you know you're never going to get there, aim higher. And we score on a quarterly basis. You score those OKRs with the team, with the whole team. And this is one of the quotes we say, if you're continuously getting a 1, you aren't being ambitious enough, you aren't crushing it, you're just sandbagging. And you don't want that. And for that it is key, and it's very, very important, not to tie the OKRs with performance. Otherwise, you're just killing the system, because just people are going to be aiming for the 1 to crush it, and you don't want that. The sweet spot is actually on a score of 0.7. They are scored between 0 and 1. And if you just keep falling under the red spot, I think this is something that it's used to help you refine the next OKRs, because it's a signal that new learning is required in the team. There's need for more time, more human resources, more money, or that you need to just go somewhere else. If they're immovable, maybe it's not worth your attention. And let's face it, it's tough. It takes time. And you will first. You will fail the first time. You'll probably fail the second quarter. You will even fail the third quarter. And for that, you really need, if you're the leaders of the company, if you really go for it, to implement this methodology, take time. Be disciplined. And make sure that you communicate about the importance of this system. It isn't complicated. Objectives, key results seem easy, but it's hard. Mainly because you confuse them with minimum tasks, because people are not on board, or because you're not really communicating well with the rest of the team about the importance. And it involves people. So you need to have the management and the leadership buy-in to really implement this methodology. So as I was saying, if you're going to go for it, which I really recommend, you need to start with the leadership team, the management team, the founding team. You need to start with small number of OKRs and start applying them to major projects. Maybe start with 1 project, 2 projects the most. And don't use them until you found product and market fit. Because at that point, you're just constantly pivoting and trying to find the space. So it's just going to mess with all your strategies. So just find your product and market fit, and then figure out when you're just about to touch the growth, that's the time to start implementing them. Again, this is a constant conversation between the team. This is not about the leadership saying, this is what we have to do. This is about a conversation, bottom-up, top-down conversation with your teams and with the leadership. So just to summarize, the OKRs need to be ambitious, they need to be measurable, and they need to be transparent. And to just leave you guys, if you have a dream and you write it down and you put a date, it becomes a plan. It becomes a goal, sorry. If a goal is broken down into different steps, it becomes a plan. And a plan that is backed by action becomes a reality. So if you really want to make things happen, you need to have your own framework for execution. Thank you so much. I want a picture. Where's the photographer? Picture. Photographer. Dale, tú dale. Una fotito con la Sof. No hay nadie. Aquí. Ahí está. Ahí está. Woo!
Sofía Benjumea. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ban. She's a very good friend, but I only see her on stage nowadays. Hola, hola, os veo a todos. A lot of friends and familiar faces. All right, we're going to talk about digital health. We're all interested, right? Are you alive? Yeah, well, you better be alive. The other option is no good. Well, digital health is a simple concept, initially using technology to help improve individual health and wellness, but it's a broad and growing sector. It can go from everything, from wearables, gadgets, to ingestible sensors, from mobile health apps, to artificial intelligence, from robotic carers to electronic records. Really, it's about applying digital transformation through disruptive technologies and cultural change to the healthcare sector. Well, to talk about this, we have a fantastic panel. Let me introduce them to you. There are 4, plus the moderators. I'm going to mention them first, and then we'll give them all a round of applause. We have Mariam Chalomeux, the Head of Digital and Innovation at Novartis, Alexis Tsakalis, the Regional Director of the MIA Bodio, Rocío Arroyo, CEO of Amadix and our super winner from South Summit competition last year, Fernando Ramirez, Director of Merlin Hub, and to moderate this panel, a superwoman, it couldn't be otherwise. She's already been on stage this afternoon. She's the Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer of Catalyst Consulting Group, and she's Scarlett Siever. Let's welcome the 5 of them. Hello. Hello, 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 hello. Rocío, hello. We're going to let Scarlett, go ahead. Yeah? Scarlett? Oh, okay here? All yours.
All right. Good afternoon. Let's get the energy up. I know it's been a long day, but we have some really exciting stuff to talk about this afternoon. So we're looking at what basically health tech and healthcare. So I think you have a group of incredible people from all facets and areas that impact health. And instead of them spending time giving their backgrounds, their names are going to be up on this stage. You can go ahead and look them up on LinkedIn and find more details about them. In the meantime, I think let's just kick it off and get into the heart of what we want to talk about here. So whoever wants to answer first, let's go there. But really, what is the future of health? And then what excites you most about that?
Well, I think the healthcare sector is in the middle of reinventing itself. And doctors will be able to work from home while performing long-distance surgery. And I think many of us saw it last February when a team of doctors from hospital clinic were removing colon cancer, and the surgeon overseeing the procedure was at the Mobile World Congress, also in Barcelona, but different location. The technology they used was 5G technology, and I think more than 140 million surgeries doesn't happen around the world each year because there aren't enough expert surgeons to perform. So I think this is one of the more important challenges we have in healthcare as of today.
How many time we have for this question? Because it's quite huge.
It is. Tweetable. We'll start there.
Okay, so, at Novartis, the goal of Novartis is to reimagine medicine to improve and extend patients' lives. So we use science, evidenced science, and digital technologies to discover new treatments and develop them in order to have an impact on their lives and their quality of life. So I think that data science and all the new AI, data, big data, and so on are really giving us a new way of innovate in terms of R&D, a new way of engaging with patients and with customers, and also to increase efficiencies. So I think it will be my answer.
So data science is going to play a big role.
Yeah.
I'm going to bounce on what she said about efficiency, because besides the medical technologies evolution that are offering many solutions today, we are still having and facing a massive global issue, which is the cost of the healthcare. And we expect by 2050 to have an increase by 50% in the healthcare. And I think that technologies and startups will provide with a solution to fill the gap, because we cannot keep the way we are doing. The healthcare growth, the healthcare cost growth is going actually faster than the economical growth. So we are having a big issue there. So we need to be much more accurate and more efficient in the way that we treat weaker people.
What I think is that obviously people tend to think about how digitalization, all the digital devices and so on, and technology in a sense is helping improve and propel healthcare. I tend to think the other way around. There is a challenge ahead of the healthcare industry, which is that the paradigm has changed, and in a sense, this generation is now starting to live both a physical life and a digital life. We spend a lot of hours in front of a screen. Our brain is multitasking, and that will for sure turn into some cause of diseases in the future that not everybody is foreseeing and anticipating. And there is a challenge for the whole healthcare industry to kind of cure a digital disease, but you are physical. So that interaction is going to be a challenge.
So we've morphed a little bit into challenges, which I think is actually great, because you can't really talk about the future without talking about some of the issues now. The owners of the clock gave us a little bit more time. So with that, is there anything else before we start getting into more specifics from the challenges perspective? What would you say is kind of the one thing that is the biggest challenge right now? I mean, we know there's a lot, as with every industry, but if there was one thing that you would really like to tackle from a challenge perspective as it relates to healthcare, what would that be?
I would say probably the fact that patients are taking on a very active role in the management of their health, of our health. I think this is really something key, because at the end of the day, there are some groups of patients, like for example, patients with bipolar disorder. Now they have a pill with a sensor that tracks if they have ingested their medication. I think it opens doors to a completely new world. This is something called Abilify MySight. It has FDA approved a couple of years ago, and it allows not only the patients, also the physicians, their caregivers, to track if they've ingested the medication. And also for patients with chronic diseases, the Internet of Things, the fact that they have applications to monitor the digestive disease, as for example Crohn or constipation, from home, and you have an app at your smartphone that check your symptoms or check your medication and tell you if you should go to an emergency room or not. So it means with efficiency also to hospital, because emergency room visits can be extremely reduced with this kind of virtual nursing assistance in your smartphone.
Anything else? Any other big challenges that are worth thinking about?
I think for a corporation perspective, a collaboration. It's a key part of pushing the innovation all over the world, and I think that we need to find a way of collaborating with startups, but also with the scientific associations, with patient associations, so how we manage the collaboration to finally work together.
Yeah, it's interesting. Earlier on this stage, we were actually having that exact conversation around collaboration and the opportunities and then some of the challenges with that model. Being a big corporation, you have so many resources, you have so much expertise, but then working with startups sometimes can be a little bit challenging, but there's a lot to be learned on both sides. So let's get a little bit more specific. Marian, let's start with you. So if we're looking specifically at oncology, where do you see the biggest opportunities for the future?
Let's see, from the last decade, we've gone from pharmaceutical research based on traditional chemistry to now biomedical research based on more genomics stuff. So I think this is something that we need to manage. And oncology, finally, oncology care have dramatically changed over the last years, mainly due to new innovative platform that Novartis is working on, such as targeted therapy, immunology, radioligand, all this stuff, gene therapy. So I think this is something that we need to really push for the benefit of the patients. And I think that in oncology, we have lots of different examples that we are using technology to improve patients' life. I can just give some example. For example, using AI for R&D, because you know that it takes years and billions to discover, develop, and launch a drug. And at Novartis, we want to decrease that by 25% using AI to really having a cost benefit, a better cost benefit, but also to optimize recruitment of patients all over the world. So we are using this kind of technologies. And we are using also virtual glasses, virtual reality, to prevent and to help patients during their treatments. We have new treatments, I don't know if you know, but gene therapies like CAR-T. It's a new process, it's complex, and patients are going through something very complicated, and having this kind of experience, this kind of understanding better the way they are treated, I think it's something that we can really bring to the patients.
Well, and if we just take a part of what you said, through AI, you're looking at reducing the time to go from idea to actual usage of the drug by 25%. That's a big deal. I mean, these are year-on-year processes, and so you're talking. I mean, the impact on people's lives is going to be incredible, because you see all these things, and we're getting closer to cures. But if you can enhance that by a year or two, then that could be a game changer. So that's very interesting. So just staying there for a second. So if we go to you, Rocío, when you think about the viability of this stuff, how are you thinking about producing the viability with diagnostics and really moving more and more to preventative?
Yeah, I think the answer, one of the answers is again, artificial intelligence will reduce this variability, but it's already reducing it. And if we look at MIT, they already are using a software or a model to reduce variability in early breast cancer detection. And when mammograms answer on false positives, there are a lot of unnecessary surgeries, not only in breast cancer, also in different types of cancer. And they are also developed their own model, and they are using this model. If we look at oncology, which is our field, what we do is early detection of cancer in blood, and we are able to tell the doctors not who is having cancer today, is who will have cancer in the future, combining analysis of molecular biomarkers, also with your lifestyle, with your habits, how you live, what you eat, and also your medical history and your family history. You put all these things together, and you are able to tell the doctor a precise answer about the diagnostics and reduce this variability. I think also in imaging, if we talk about diagnostics, there are some softwares, deep learning softwares or models, technology that integrate thousands of images of magnetic resonance. If we look at oncology, we can see many examples when applications or softwares reduce this variability and help the radiologists to find a result about cancer diagnostics in less time and reducing their workload.
So let's stay on the preventative side for a second. Alexis, how can we move from a curative system to a preventative medical system? What does that look like from you and your perspective?
Well, there are several ways to do that. We see that today. I was talking about the cost of the healthcare today, which is directly related to the fact that we are in a curative system today. So it's much more expensive to cure rather than preventing diseases. So we strongly believe in the 4P medicines, which the 4P stand. Maybe some people here know about it. The 4P stands for predictive, preventive, personalized, and participative. And we strongly believe into that, and we develop technologies in this way. So The predictive side would be answering the question of lack of information. That's a massive issue today in the world. A lot of people don't know that they have a disease, or don't know that the way they are acting might lead to getting a disease. And even people, when they get a diagnosis from a doctor, they don't get an accurate information. In a lot of cases, they don't get the right information on how to be treated. So predictive means that we want an early stage, tell people, okay, you might get something, treat yourself. The second part is the preventive. So preventive means that as soon as we know the type of disease you might suffer, we will prevent, you might be suffering, we will prevent that by taking some action plan, like doing some sports, adapt your nutrition, have better sleep cycles. So the point is to improve the healthcare, not the healthcare, the lifestyle. For third P is the personalized. So now the action plans will be made directly upon your genetics, thanks to the new technologies. It will be so the plan will be planned based on your medical history, on your environment, whether it's a professional environment or a personal environment. And last but not least, we need to push people to act and to do something about their lifestyle, because if you don't push them, I mean, how many people started to go in a gym and after 1 month they stop? It's because there is absolutely no incentive. So we need the patients, people, all of us, to be in the middle of this process and make them participate in their own health. So this is what we are trying to do, and this is we developed technologies, hardware and software in this regard.
So on the incentive piece, you're totally right. I mean, that's how gyms make all their money. They end up having so many memberships, and they know that usually whatever it is, anywhere between 30 and 50% of the people are the only ones who actually come on a consistent basis. So what type of things have you and the team been thinking about as it relates to incentives? How do you get people incentivized to take care of themselves?
You want a precise example, or?
Yeah, however you kind of think about it.
Let's say that, I mean, you're the employee of a company, and you make a plan with your employer. I mean, the employers now really want to take care about their employees, right? So the employer would say to the employees, okay, guys, you check yourselves. You go and do some checkups, medical checkups, on a regular basis, and we'll see some improvement. When you see some improvement, you could be rewarded by tokens or by any, I don't know, currencies or whatever. Once you exactly the same way you collect miles when you take a flight, you collect some miles, and you can exchange them for whatever. It would be the same system. So you improve your lifestyle, so you improve your healthcare. So on the global picture, you will cost less to the society, I would say, because it's everyone's money here in the system. So you will be able to exchange those miles, those health miles, let's say, with anything.
So it's kind of two ways. It's in some ways some type of a currency, and then potentially, almost gamifying it as well.
There is a gamification part of it. I mean, we need to make this fun for people. I mean, this morning I was seeing a conference about video games, and it's the #1 entertainer factor in the world. So yeah, we need to make it a game. People have fun, so they do it.
Absolutely. One of the things that I love about this group of people is how diverse and broad your backgrounds are. So when you think of a conversation around health tech, you're probably not going to think about what we're about to talk about with Fernando. So you come from the real estate perspective. Yeah. How can the working environment actually impact people's health?
He was precisely mentioning that, which is if you want to make the employer absolutely sensitive to healthcare, you can implement a plan related to incentives and so on, but you need the facilities. At the end of the day, we are a real estate company owning in Spain 1.4 million square meters of office space. That translates into around 150,000 workers coming to our spaces every single day. They spend 1/3 of their life in our space. It's our duty and responsibility to make and create the proper working environment. Because when you go to a doctor and the doctor says you should sleep well, you should also work well. And that's our duty and responsibility. So although it may sound like not very obvious, we as landlord have now a responsibility towards our tenants in order to create this environment and to be healthcare sensitive, which is at the end of the day something that is business related, because now the dialogue that we have with the employer who is taking care of all the workforce is that, okay, what are you doing in order to improve the quality of life of my workers while they're working every single day? Hence, we are embarked in a project like, for example, Merlin Hub, which is basically creating common services around a campus concept, whereby the environment is better. We create gyms facilities, we create good quality food facilities in order to be shared among all of them. We are sensorizing our buildings in order to test. That's a challenge also, the flow of people, whether people are happy or not, whether they feel comfortable or not, or whether they feel stressed in our spaces. So that's a challenge. Healthcare is not only related to medicine industry or to pharma industry, it's also, although as I was saying before, not obvious, something that affects many other markets.
Absolutely. So really quickly, let's go back, Rocío, to you. When you're thinking about you and the company, so we're talking about the impact of the environment on what you're doing, how is what you're doing affecting the way that medicine is interacting with doctors and patients? What does that part look like?
I think the interaction between them is changing, because a patient can monitor their health at home with chronic disease, with different disease, and can prevent to have a disease in the future. I think this is cost savings for everybody, and this is the reason, because of insurance companies in many countries, for example, in the US, Blue Cross Blue Shield, etc., they reduce the monthly fee of a patient if this person performs regularly, for example, a test for early cancer detection for colon cancer, this fecal test. So there are some incentives in performing this screening test or this test to prevent diseases in the future. I think this is cost savings for insurance companies, for hospitals, for everybody, besides improving the health and extending the life of patients.
Got it. Marian, we were talking a little bit about collaboration as one of your points. How is Novartis doing that? How are you thinking about that? So how do all of those people, you talked about the researchers, you talked about the startups, how are all of those people helping to impact kind of the future of health from you guys?
Yeah, finally, for us, it's key. We know that innovation and collaboration will be key for the future, and we are starting to work with startups. We are starting to make some open challenges. We need to have the team open to the innovation, having dedicated time to go here, for example, to see companies, to see what exists outside, and to really fit the technologies to the needs that the patients or the physician have. So we are starting to push people to go and to see outside. And also internally, we are developing a different mindset. It's an entrepreneurship program. We want people to be more open, to be more agile, more flexible, and to really have this contact with the external partners.
Awesome. So last thoughts from Alexis and Fernando. You can either both choose or one of you choose to answer. What keeps you up at night when you're thinking about, the future of healthcare? What keeps you up at night? Besides the cost, because that's definitely keeps me up at night.
Well, I mean, the main part, there are two goals here. To reduce the cost is one thing, but also it's just to improve the lifestyle of people and make people healthy. That's what keeps me up.
What about you, Fernando?
In our case, as I was saying before, whether the technology is up to speed in order for us to sense in a space how people are perceiving the space, the quality, and their wellness at the end of the day, which is not easy.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much, and thank you. And until next time, let's see what we look like in a year from now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. We have to get quick into our next panel. Well, it's actually a fireside chat, and it's the last of today. And it is the best way to finish our day. Because we're going to have a fireside chat between two top successful entrepreneurs. They represent the values of South Summit: passion, hard work, good looks. The first one has taken the company he created from zero to making 1.5 billion euros in revenue. He's Austrian by birth, but Spanish at heart. In 2006, he quit a promising career at McKinsey because he saw a clear opportunity, a business opportunity for an alternative telco to compete against the already existing ones in Spain. He founded MásMóvil. Anybody doesn't know what MásMóvil is? Obviously not. In the midst of an economic crisis and facing three humongous competitors. Well, fast forward a few years, and this guy, now his company has become the fourth largest telecom operation in Spain with more than 8.5 million customers and is listed in the IBEX 35. Our second guest, who will facilitate the talk, is a technological guy turned growth CEO. He founded Olapic, a leading visual marketing platform, and sold it for $130 million. He just couldn't relax. He had nothing to do, so now he's the CEO at Carto, the world's leading location intelligence platform. And they're here to talk about scale-up in Spain. And they sure know a lot about it. Please, let's welcome Meiner Spenger and Luis Sanz. Adelante! Welcome.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for staying late today. Thank you, Manny, for being with us today. We know you're pretty busy. The idea of this is to have a conversation now about what are the challenges of scaling a company in Spain. But even before that, you're originally from Austria and you started a telco in Spain. Those are two things that are not necessarily obvious. So what were you thinking?
Well, not too much, because I did not know what would happen after creating a company. But Luis, thanks for your time and for you for joining us. Basically, we created MásMóvil in 2006. In 2006, Spain was the most expensive country in Europe in mobile telephony. Point one. And point two, basically, the Spaniards were the less satisfied clients in Europe. Mm-hmm. So we said we created a concept called mobile virtual network operator. That is an operator that rents the network from a traditional telco operator and then commercializes the services to the end clients. And this concept was very successful in Northern Europe. Mm-hmm. And we said, okay, if this works in countries with much more aggressive price levels and with service levels also higher than in Spain, it should work also here. At the end, it worked out well, but we had very tough years at the beginning.
And why was it tough? What was the hardest part at the beginning?
Look, we came to Spain with the support of regulation. Basically, the Spanish regulator said, okay, there is no real competition in the market. 3 operators, same price levels, so not really good client service. So he obliged the operators to open up their networks for new agents like MásMóvil. So this was formally an obligation, but in practice, it was not that obvious that we would get a contract and access to the networks. So we had to fight and negotiate for 2 years, 2 years without salary, eating pasta and pesto every second day, sharing apartment with a friend and the co-founder, Christian. And so we were back to university, more or less.
Yeah, it's something that is happening a lot these days, that you can see, like with all those new business models, how regulation in Spain is playing a very significant role on the success of all those new mobility platforms or not letting them operate and things like that. Would you say that that's something that marked the destiny of your company?
Well, it was a stimulus at the beginning, and we would not have come to Spain to create a company without regulation. But at the end, after that, it was more we advanced more to commercial negotiations than actual obligations. No? I think that's one of the key success factors that we have demonstrated over 15 years, that we are a reliable partner, that our business partners can trust in us. I recall that we once paid late one bill, We pre-announced 2 months before that we would pay late, but in general, people knew that they could trust us. And so, yeah, that's one of probably the important things. Create trustful relationships.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so you get to the point, you get your license, you start operating, but you're still competing with some of the most powerful companies in Spain. How was that experience when you were still small and nimble?
Well, we launched our services in 2008. So in February 2008, people could start talking to us, with our services, no? And this was exactly the time when the Spanish crisis, financial economic crisis, really started. So for startups, this was a difficult time to raise money. And so we had to learn to grow efficiently, basically with our own resources, which were not that many. We are normal people, no? And that helped us a lot in the later years, because in our DNA, there's still, let's say, one element is to spend our money wisely and to think a lot and be prudent when spending. And so we started in 2008 and grew during the years of crisis until 2013 to around 200,000 clients, not more, which is okay for a country like Austria, but in Spain with almost 50 million inhabitants is not very relevant in the sector. In 2014, we became public at the stock exchange for small and medium enterprises in Spain, the so-called alternative market. We raised money and then had funds to accelerate our growth.
That makes sense. And you mentioned that you started during the crisis, and it's always said that when you start a company in times of economic bonanzas, it's actually harder to do it because it's very difficult to attract talent because there are a lot of opportunities for there, as opposed to crisis times when you are actually able to attract better people. Is that your experience, or how was that?
No, not really. You have to imagine, I think Spain evolved very well in terms of entrepreneurship and creating an ecosystem in the last 15 years. In 2006, it was not like that. I had a girlfriend when I arrived to Spain, a Spanish girlfriend, and their family everybody was thinking I was completely crazy.
Yeah.
How do you create a company in a sector where only giants were acting? No, we have all multinational companies here, and then comes a naive Giri from Austria to create a business to compete here. No, so there was not the situation where entrepreneurship was highly valued. This has changed a lot, and it is changing. And now I think Spain is a great place to start companies, actually. But they evolved a lot during the last 15 years.
So what was your pitch to those early employees that you were thinking that you were crazy?
But basically, yeah, you have to think telecom sector was a sector that was growing a lot. Until in 2006, it was still growing. Between the year 2000 and 2006, probably Spain grew in mobile telephony penetration from 20% to 100%. So it was a growth market. It was well paid, very well paid. And everybody, when thinking of mobile telephony, was thinking of the big three traditional operators. So to attract somebody for a small company that nobody knew, a chiringuito in Spanish, was very tough. We had what we did that initially, we made the people that came in part of our shareholdings. So we gave them stock options or phantom shares or similar stuff to incentivize to have an upside with a modest salary. And then, fortunately, it turned out to be the right decision for everybody, and so people could enjoy some of the upside. Yes.
Cool. And was there any particular moment where kind of it became obvious that this was going to be a big business, or that was always the plan from the beginning? What was the transition to Chiringuito to the company?
Well, originally the plan was to be 3-4 years in Spain and then go home to Austria. Okay. Now I'm here since early 2006, and no plan to return for the moment. So we thought we will create a startup. We will launch very quickly, get the critical mass of clients, sell the company, and go home. So that was the original idea. Then it evolved very differently. No, from the beginning we had, however, the idea to create a sustainable business. So we never wanted to bluff, to blow the company up sell it, but to create a really sustainable business, which differentiated basically in one thing, give a better client, provide a better client experience. So to treat our clients better than the competition, which was not that difficult. But that's still our main focus, quality of service, good customer experience. On a high level, we have a net promoter score that measures the satisfaction level of clients of around 40 on average in our company, and the competition is at 0 or negative. So this is still a big asset for us that helps us. We are spending like 4 times less in marketing and are the operator that has the most growth in the country.
Nice. And that was an opportunity. Do you think that there is still an opportunity in this sector for new players, or is this something that because you have changed the industry in the sense like forcing everyone else to improve their quality of service a little bit at least? So do you think that there is still room for innovation? Or?
Well, no, there's a lot of room for innovation, and actually we are learning a lot from other sectors each day, and we try to implement some best practices. Give you an example. We are in the mobile business, and we are also in the fiber business, so broadband. Traditionally, when a Spaniard asked for a new fiber connection, he was informed by phone. We passed by that day, so that day the person or the client had to take off vacation from work, wait at home until the technician would come to install the fiber connection.
Yep.
What we did is first, we plan very precisely the slots, the time slot, so it's a 2-hour time slot more or less. And then we brought in what we call the Cabify or the Uber of the technicians. We send the client a link with an application, and he sees exactly who is the technician, where he is, what his phone number, and can contact and coordinate. And that's such a simple thing that is not rocket science.
Yep.
But improves a lot the customer experience. So we are learning a lot, we are innovating a lot. However, telco there are a lot of fixed costs. So infrastructure is very important, and infrastructure is very expensive. So for new entrants, that's a big barrier.
Yep.
And we are quite happy. We have both fantastic fiber infrastructure as well as mobile infrastructure. So we can fill up this infrastructure now, our networks with clients, and they have a fantastic experience.
Nice. And forgetting about telco for a second, I mean, you've done something that is very unusual. That is like if you look at the companies in the IBEX 35, like they don't change that often. It's very rare that you get new companies and companies built from scratch to get there. And you've been able to do that. Any particular advice for any other entrepreneur from Spain or not, that if you're taking that route, that you will have to think about?
No, I mean, obviously we have to be honest. There was initially a low probability that we would reach IBEX 35, and we did not expect it. However, we evolved very well on the stock exchange. Our investors understood that we are not a typical telco, so we are not bureaucratic, slow, and we are especially very efficient in investments. We have basically reinvented the way that we acquire infrastructure, and it's quite obvious, but what we do basically is co-investing. So we collaborate with other operators, because if you have to put a fiber cable to a home, if you share the costs and do it together, obviously it's half price. On one hand, and then what we're doing, and we are investing in own infrastructure in areas where we have the highest returns, and we complement it with third-party infrastructure, with other operators, in the places where we don't have that many clients and we don't see that many potential. No? So it's a combination of own infrastructure and third-party infrastructure, and this gives us the flexibility when we see, okay, we use the infrastructure of somebody else. If we're very successful there, then we might roll out our own infrastructure. And this flexibility is quite new in the sector, and gives us a competitive advantage. Basically, our vision, and you always have to be humble and modest, but our vision is to be the best telco operator in Europe in 2 ways. First, best client experience. We are better than the benchmark here in Spain, but we can improve still a lot. And the second is to be the most profitable operator, so give the highest returns to our shareholders, which is also a problem of the sector, because the return on equity usually in traditional telco is low single digit.
Yep.
And that's really a problem, and it's a problem of positioning. if you think today, it's much easier to sell a cup of coffee for €5 at Starbucks than to increase your mobile bill for €5. And that's really, if you think about it, that what telecommunication, connectivity means in our personal and professional lives, then this is absolutely crazy.
Crazy indeed, yeah. And I think we only have a couple of minutes more. You mentioned that you've been here for 15 years and no plans to leave. What's interesting, there are a lot of foreigners in the South Summit and learning about the potential of Spain. What's about Spain that makes this an interesting place to start a business and stick around?
I think Spain is very open for foreigners. It's easy to integrate and to have fun and to have Spanish friends also. That's not obvious in a lot of countries. Obviously, lifestyle, sun, food, etc., great. And I think Spain has the scale to be very attractive for businesses that want to have the ambition to grow a lot. No? In Austria, let's say business world is fine, unemployment is 3-4%, but it's a country of 8 million inhabitants. Here we have almost 50. For that aim, you can create really sizable companies here.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations on all your success.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
No, fiesta, ya, fiesta. Dale, ahora le vamos a dar caña. Yes, this is it for today. We've come to the end of our first day at South Summit 2019. It's been a long and exhausting, intense, interesting, amazing day. And now it's time to party. So, party well, party nicely, not too much, because I'll wait for you tomorrow at this stage at 9:30. So see you then. Have a nice evening. Goodbye. And now fiesta. Dale. Ven, foto. Voy a pasármelo bien.
Tengo algunos enemigos, pero esta noche no podrán contar conmigo, porque voy a convertirme en hombre lobo. Me juro a mí mismo que no dormiré solo, porque hoy algo me dice que voy a pasármelo bien. Voy a cogerme el pedo de los que hacen afición, ir estando a casa con la sonrisa puesta. Mañana y si puedo dormiré la siesta, pero esta noche no. Esta noche algo me dice voy a pasármelo bien. Bueno, vamos a ver qué encontramos en esta agendilla de teléfonos. ¿Qué se sabe? María del Mar, Ana, Elena estará, no sé, pero voy a pasármelo bien. Hasta mañana, amigos.
Gracias, chicos. Esto es lo mejor de mi trabajo. ¿Qué pasa con el equipo técnico? Es verdad, gracias al equipo técnico, por supuesto, regidores, audio, vídeo, sonido, luces. Sin vosotros no hay magia. Ya me callo, ya me echáis. ¿Qué me decís? ¿Que no he dejado gente? Se han ido todos. ¿Me he dejado gente? ¿Qué me falta? ¿Qué me falta? Mañana lo primero que hago es saludar a todos vosotros. Los voluntarios, claro que sí. Si es que esto es un gran trabajo de equipo, ¿sabes? Si sale bien, el mérito es mío, y si sale mal, es de ellos, claro. Corta.